Sir, you're charged with especially aggravated kidnapping. You're also charged with aggravated assault, and you're charged with theft of a firearm worth less than $2,500.
You're talking about stuff that is not relevant.
Hello and welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the Recovery Addict, and boy do I have a case for you today.
Why is the dog chewing on this guy?
I think they have got the wrong guy there.
Got the wrong guy, and the dog was biting him.
He roughened him up quite a bit. There's a lawsuit.
9 out of 10 judges prefer watching the Recovery Addict live stream in their courtroom.
The fireworks are not done.
Now we're getting commentary on the case. Dati mihi Anglican po, he's service Latino. I didn't ask you to interrupt me. That's literally not true.
Just barely, the camera came back on. All right, there we go. Testing 1 2, test 1 2. Is that not loud enough? That's too loud. We're gonna be about right here. Is that all right? Let's see, what are we doing today? Oh, it's Friday. Happy Friday. Welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the Recovery Addict. Thank you very much for being here. Please take a seat. Take a seat. Let's see, I'm going to put that over here. That there. Where is my... dilemmas? I want to start things just a tiny bit differently this morning. I'm going to pull this up here. Nope, we're going to drag it over to the other screen. There it is. Yay. Okay, let's see. Make that full screen there. Okay. All right. First things first. Let me turn on my computer so it can start working. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. I'm not in focus, but that's okay. There we go. Well, that'll be close enough. All right. First things. Jennifer Juniper. Or Jennifer Juniper. I think I got that right. Jennifer Juniper. Whew. First in chat today. Congratulations. This is a first-time offense for you. I mean, a first win for you. Excuse me. I didn't mean to... scare you off too early. I see you've got a greenhouse courthouse by your name. Love that. Appreciate the support. In spite of all that, being first in chat is actually punished around here. We love somebody to do it because somebody has to do it. Somebody has to be first. But here you are, being first in chat, and we're going to punish you for it. We're going to sentence you to internet ownership for the duration of until we go live again, which probably will be just after lunch. So we're just going to do that because we can. You broke the silence of the morning. It was quiet in chat, and you barged in and said, hi. Hi back. Hello, Jennifer. But now you own the internet, and you have to repair it if it breaks for everybody. So just be prepared to handle that today. Creative B says, I was on the rewatch crew for the podcast. It was hysterical. We had a great podcast last night. Thomas and I just had a blast. Didn't get through half the stuff we wanted to talk about or had planned on talking about, but it was wonderful. Glad for all of you that were able to join and watch it live. And if you watch it on the replay, it's just as funny. Honestly, the funniness level is exactly the same, and it's pretty high. All right. Sorry, it was cracking me up last night. She's fun. Love her. All right, let's see. We have... Oh, hang on. I was going to do something a little different this morning. So while the birthday wishes or the birthday registry is being populated, I think that's how I say it. We're going to do something just a tiny bit different and have just a few minutes of an intro, a true crime intro. First, Emily says, good morning, Recovery Addict. I'm back watching after having my little girl born March 18th. Stayed a subscriber, but back to watching with an extra cute viewer with me. Emily, thank you so much. Probably our youngest viewer. Your daughter's our youngest viewer. Congratulations. That is awesome. Congratulations. That is really, really, really cool. Thanks for sharing that with us. All right. With Okay, while the birthday form is being populated, this is the last chance. So we'll leave it open for just a second if that's all right, Sharon. I don't know if you've got a minute. If you have to go, then I understand. But I wanted to show you something that happened yesterday. And here's what we have. It's never a good idea to insult the judge, right? Like, I don't know if they teach this in law school, because I haven't been, and it does seem to be, more common sense than law. But the judge is, for all intents and purposes, the king of the courtroom, or the queen. And what they say goes, to a great extent. They in some cases can be the judge, jury, and executioner all in the same setting. And you don't want to find yourself in a situation where the judge is playing all those three roles for you as a surprise event, okay? Yesterday, Judge Cedric had an attorney in his courtroom that the case itself is very sad. It's a domestic violence case. We're going to skip through all that. But the defense attorney in this case was a little upset that there was an emergency hearing to raise the bond for his client, to go from personal recognizance up to like $100,000 or something like that. It was a big jump. And he's a little mad because this got thrown on him like at the last minute. It was literally an emergency hearing. And he had the audacity to say, if the shoe was on the other foot, Judge, we know we wouldn't be here. If I had asked for an emergency hearing, if I, on the defense side, had asked for an emergency hearing, we know the court wouldn't have granted that. Here's Judge Cedric's response. If I can find my mouse, just one second. Back it up. Here we go.
Do not even insult this court by saying that, Mr. Bennett. Do not, because you would have gotten a hearing. Had you filed a motion, had you requested that it is an emergency hearing, the public defender's office does it all the time. The fact you don't know how to do that and think that this court is playing favorites, you're wrong. Court's going to stand in recess. Let me just say this, Mr. Bennett. I've been on this bench almost 25 years, and never have I ever been insulted in the fashion you just insulted this court. No. My turn. The very first case, when you say that defense counsel or anybody else doesn't get access to the court like the prosecutors, you are absolutely wrong. The first case I called today was upon receiving a notification about something that I had considered in a bond, was notified that that had been located. This court, to the defendant's benefit, set that hearing without notice to any side. I set the hearing. So to be fair to all of the parties, I receive motions all the time regarding bond. And this court just seeks to be fair, to have a hearing. Mr. Bennett, if I had had in my heart the desire just to lock your client up, quite frankly, because the decision came from a magistrate under the court rule without a hearing, I could have changed that bond. But I wanted to give the parties the opportunity to be heard. Now, having said that, so maybe you can put that in a little perspective. I heard you that you said you just got the discovery, can't go through it. Well, I'm going to give you about another 18 hours to go through it, because I'm adjourning this hearing for two reasons. To allow you to go through the discovery, to give me a cogent argument as to why I should not grant what the people want. And secondly, because you have raised the ire of this court. I am not going to punish your client by what was one of the most ignorant statements I have heard about the conduct of this court from any counsel in all of my years. I will not, by any means, punish him for that. I do not make my decisions out of anger. I'm adjourning this to tomorrow, noon. All the parties are ordered to be here. That is all. That is all.
So that was yesterday. Lunchtime today could be interesting. It could be very interesting. Oh my goodness. Wow. In all my 25 years, I've never been insulted in the fashion that you just insulted the court. He accused the judge of playing favorites, that he grants motions, emergency motions even for the prosecution, but the defense, don't worry about them. Yeah, that didn't fly very well. I'm not sure if that works in other courts. Is this like this attorney's strategy? It can't be his first time. I know it's not his first time in front of Judge Cedric Simpson. But wow. Anyway, thankfully, his client is thinking two things. I'm very glad the judge is not going to punish me based on my lawyer's behavior. But the other thing he's got to be thinking is, I need a new lawyer. I cannot go forward. If my lawyer thought that was a good idea, how can I trust whatever else he's been telling me about how we should go forward with this case? Oh, wow. Anyway, so with that said, now we're going to sing happy birthday. We have to get a little court kickoff first thing in the morning. After all, this is a true crime channel, right? We have to start with a little bit of that. Court is almost in session. We're gonna begin. Well, I'll have it all ready in just a moment. But first, we're going to sing happy birthday. Can we watch that today? It's probably going to be very tame, honestly. Pickles and Zoe. It's probably going to be very tame, but we're going to keep an eye out for it. Judge Cedric is live right now, but he said noon is when he wants it called. And I don't know if it's going to happen right at noon or sometime in the noon hour or sometime at 3 o'clock, because he has been known to let people sort of stew on it for a while. Bring him to court and let him sit there. Let him think about it. But one thing I do believe is that he will be fair when he comes back. All right, let's get the birthday wishes out here. It looks like we have Cheryl, Corgan, Tom, and Julian all celebrating their special day today, which means we are going to sing to Cheryl, Corgan, Tom, and Julian in that order. And when I say we, I mean us, me and you. We are going to sing. So please join with me, raising your voice in this happy celebration for these four individuals who have a birthday today. But first, we'll need to warm up. La, 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 la. There we go. All right. Raise your voices, deep breaths, shoulders back, breathe with your diaphragm, project to the back of the room, and smile while you sing. The happiness carries in this music. Here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Cheryl, Corgan, Tom, and Julian. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Cheryl, Corgan, Tom, and Julian. And a happy Friday birthday at that. Doesn't get much better than that. I mean, those two together. Weekend and everything. Oh, man. Reverend Beasley says, Corgan, in the birthday song, is my kiddo turning 10 tomorrow. Corgan, happy big 10th birthday. That is awesome. Hope you have a great birthday. Hope it is just wonderful. To all those that are celebrating their birthday today or this weekend, I hope it's great. I hope it's amazing. I hope it's the best one yet, honestly. I realize there are a million places you could be and a million people you could be with. You've chosen to be here with us for this birthday song. Thank you very much. Thanks for letting us share this special day with you. And get your free pancakes at Denny's. Yes, Corgan, there are free pancakes at Denny's. But you have to register on the app. Hopefully you've done that already. Wonderful. All right. That being said, with that celebration completed, well, not completed. The party goes all day long, but with the singing part done, the dancers can please regain their seats, and we will go ahead and begin with court. Whatever happened to the rap intro? The rap intro is a little much. It's Friday. What the heck? Let's do a rap as well. Let's see. Where is Where's the rap? I think it's right here. Are you ready?
Wake up in the morning wearing headphones. I'm running court into your brain like it's an end zone. My money's green like the pickles and you want some. Don't interrupt cause I don't want your lame objection. From land t-shirts to murder, I think I've seen it all. From picking juries to when the gavel falls. The judge takes the bench and the bailiff yells, all rise and pay respect to the one and only go to true crime. Imitators, they try but they just can't achieve. And when they fail they be like, ow, I stepped on a beat. Take the stand and the jury chooses not to believe, because there will never be another creator like me. Big deal in one corner and the count in another. We've got the judge reading chat while we talk to the lawyers. All our clips go viral, they're too good not to share. Came in late, check the thumbnails, you'll find it all there. They say I'm addicted to rhyme, but it's more than just timing. The mic is hot, the gavel drops, and I'll be talking about crime. And don't you worry about the sound, cause I'm keeping it real. Just like a pickle jar, but I'm one big deal. They say I'm addicted to rhyme, but it's more than just timing. The mic is hot, the gavel drops, and I'll be talking about crime. And don't you worry about the sound, cause I'm keeping it real. Just like a pickle jar, but I'm one big deal.
There we go. Big deal. I haven't worked it into a video intro yet. We'll have to work on that. But speaking of check the thumbnail, yeah. All right. While we get that done, let me see. I've got just one more. Well, I've just got to get court ready. That's it. We're gonna start because we have a full day of court today. No jury views or anything to interrupt what we're doing. We are on day 5 of court and we are catching up slowly, but that's the intent. We are trying to catch up slowly. Let's see. Let's do here. Are we on day 5? Are we on day 6? What day are we on? What did we do yesterday? Can somebody help me out? My thumbnail says day 5, but I'm wondering if I did 2 day 4s. Let's see here. Let's see who's on the stand on this day. Oh, I think we're here. Here we go. Boom, 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 boom. Ceiling fan, ceiling fan, ceiling fan, and then we start. All right. Now we're ready. All right, I need to turn on the counter and turn off the phone, which is ringing. Why do I have... Why do we have weird audio going on? I'm not sure here. Let's see. We're going to skip ahead just one tiny bit because we've watched enough ceiling fans in our day. There we go. All right, now we're ready. It sounds like a party line, just a little bit. Here's the call of the court. Let's hear it. It's a long speech. Ready?
When it's open, you may be seated.
22117, the Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. Can I, counsel, identify?
Never mind, we skipped this.
Adam Lally for the Commonwealth. Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Mr. Lally.
Good morning, Your Honor. Laura McLaughlin for the Commonwealth.
Good morning, Ms. McLaughlin.
Good morning, Your Honor. Alan Jackson for Ms. Reed.
Good morning, Mr. Jackson.
Good morning, Your Honor. Elizabeth Little, also for Ms. Reed.
Good morning, Ms. Little.
And good morning, David Yannetti for Karen Reed.
Good morning, Ms. Giannetti. Good morning, Ms. Reed. All right, counsel wanted to see me?
I did, Your Honor. Judge, as I indicated in an email that I sent to your clerk last night and copied to Commonwealth.
I have not seen the email.
Okay, well, I'll explain what was in it. Essentially, I was alerting the court that I would like to be heard prior to the start of testimony today because since Katie McLaughlin testified on Thursday and Friday, we received a deluge of photographs that put her with Caitlin Albert on many different occasions after they graduated high school. We received information from their high school yearbook that they were more than just acquaintances in high school. They were teammates on the track team. And even after I sent that email with the photographs that I attached to it, late last night we received another photo where Katie McLaughlin and Caitlin Albert are standing next to each other in a photo at a baby shower in June of 2021, about 8 months before John O'Keefe's death. It's very clear to us that Katie McLaughlin perjured herself. And I wanted to discuss the issue of the admissibility of not only the photographs that we're now providing that we just received over the weekend, but I also want to resurrect the admissibility of H, I, J, and K for identification. And I think a discussion of this, Your Honor, needs to start with what court orders are currently in place. The leading case with regard to the provision of reciprocal discovery when the defense is offering...
Oh, so you want to get back to Rule 14, the Rule 14 issue?
It is a Rule 14 issue.
Okay.
That's supplemented
so,
by...
hold on one second. So on top of that, we can discuss this later. I'd like to get the trial started.
That's fine, Your Honor. My belief, my strong belief, is that we need to determine this today. And the reason is that Caitlin Albert is coming up as a witness for the Commonwealth. She faces the same areas of cross-examination that Katie McLaughlin faced, and these photos are relevant to her cross-examination.
Okay. All right. So aside from the Rule 14 issue, I also think this is cumulative. I don't have the email. I do have the photos, but we can address this. When do you expect the Albert? I'm sorry. What's her name?
Caitlin Albert.
Caitlin Albert.
I'd say midweek, probably. It depends on how far we get today.
So we'll address this either today or tomorrow.
Thank you.
How can it be cumulative if you didn't allow the first ones in?
So,
maybe too much, but...
Sergeant Lenk, is he testifying today?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so we need a voir dire of him. I expect that might take a while. Is he testifying this morning, or can we use the lunch break for that? I need to know if it's around 11 o'clock, we'll have a voir dire. I'll just order coffee. I just need to know about that.
So I anticipate 2 witnesses prior to him.
The coffee?
So I can't predict necessarily how long.
How long will you be with those 2 witnesses?
With those 2 witnesses, probably half hour, maybe a little more with each.
Okay. Any idea how long the cross will be with those witnesses?
Probably, I will handle one of those witnesses. Mr. Yannetti will handle the other, and I would say at least a half an hour on cross-examination, maybe a little bit more.
Okay, would it be up to an hour on each? I'm just, again, scheduling. I'm not limiting you at all, I'm just curious.
Thank you. I don't think we'd exceed an hour. I would say safely, I know it's a big range, but between a half an hour and an hour, I think.
Your Honor, it just depends how much perjury they commit.
I think that's probably accurate.
All right. Paul, can I see you for a second?
Okay. Wow. So the judge wants to put this off a little bit. The defense wants to settle this perjury issue.
Thank you. So we will all set to bring the jurors in?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
All right. It starts off with a bang this morning. And we're going to see both Mr. Yannetti and Mr. Jackson on cross. So lying under oath, that's perjury, right? Your definition of lying has to be sort of investigated. My personal belief is that lying is saying or doing something with the intent to deceive, right? That the intent to deceive is there. And so under my belief, I think the way that Caitlin, or sorry, that, can't remember her name here, just one second. Katie McLaughlin. the way she answered the questions about her knowledge of and relationship with that witness intended to deceive in my mind. Because what I get from what she said, like, I had somebody who in high school by that name. There was somebody in high school by that name. That's a very different picture to we regularly go to the beach together. We attend the same, when your friend circles are that close and you're always at the same events, I'm not sure if that's just mutual friends anymore. I think that's one single friend circle where you're both members. She might be right that she's not a close friend. But I think they definitely have grounds here to say maybe some perjury. Dog lover, it's very rare. Mostly in trials like this, the jury just disregards the testimony, I think.
Right to the jury.
I think the actual, to prosecute perjury is, it has to be pretty specific.
Hear ye. All persons have any business before the Honorable Beverly Canoni, Justice of the Norfolk Superior Court in and for the County of Norfolk. Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This court is now open. You may be seated.
There you go.
Good morning
could
again,
be a bit
Counsel.
louder, but
Good morning
we like
again,
it.
Ms. Reed. Good morning, jurors. I have to ask you those same 3 questions, and I appreciate your patience. We had to work out a few things this morning. So,
Which we didn't do.
Was everyone able to follow the instructions and refrain from discussing this case with anyone?
Yes.
Everyone said yes and nodded affirmatively. Were you also able to follow the instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case?
Yes.
I'm going to ask you if you were able to refrain from seeing or reading or hearing anything about this case since we left the other day.
Yes.
So with that, I'm going to see counsel at sidebar and
Looks like they're hitting the sidebar early this morning. Auntie Bev serving up some justice on the sidebar. Love the accent. It's good. I love it. It's beautiful. A couple of them get a little bit thick, and we've already had one situation where the discussion was a little bit inhibited by the thick accent, because we had out-of-towners trying to hear locals and the furrow story. Like furrows, like like scratches on the arm, furrows. All right, we are getting set over on Top Mark Media. If you're following the Chad Daybell case, that's going to be going here shortly. We have a new thumbnail over there as well as the new thumbnail here. Congratulations and great work on everyone who's building the thumbnails. We'll probably need to take some time and look at them here soon and get an understanding of some of the depictions on there and just why they're there, which is always fun. It's so creative. Let's see, Judge Boyce has not yet put up his live feed, so we'll keep an eye on that. Meanwhile, our heart monitor is beating regularly. Beep, beep, beep. That's good news. If it ever stops beeping, then we've got a problem. Shut that down. Let's see. Beep. All right. Seismograph counter in the bottom right-hand corner. With every trial, or nearly every trial, we try to count something unique to the trial, or something that is quite prevalent in the trial. We're not doing this to mock anyone, even if it's a sorry counter. Sorry, not sorry counter. The seismograph in this trial is referring just to Judge Beverly. She has the habit of sticking close to the microphone, and she also has the habit of occasionally sighing, like that sort of sigh. We have 52 of them counted so far, and we're on day 5. So we do count them. We have a seismograph is what's measuring or counting those sighs, and I appreciate the recommendation for that one. Always is fun to count those. If I miss one, just let me know. Just say seismograph and then the number it should be. But just be mindful, we are trying not to count any other sighs, like the sighs from witnesses, which we've had a couple, the sighs from the prosecution or the defense, which we've also had a couple. So you have to sort of tune your ear to Judge Beverly's voice. And it's a lot easier to count these than the what if any's. Quite honestly, it's easier on my finger. Can we count when we sigh too, please? No. We have to keep the record clear on this one in case there's any appeal. I'm trying to think of how we're going to catch up a little closer to live, but not live. We're probably going to be a day or two behind come the end of the case. I'd like it to be about a day at the end of the case, just so we can be able to have conversations with our friends and stuff about the case and the evidence right around deliberation time. Oh, more beeps. We're plugged directly into the monitor now. I'm pretty sure we should be hearing something right here. There we go. There's a sigh.
Be mindful of the step up. Thank you. Thank you.
Morning. Morning.
Do you solemnly swear the evidence you give the court and jury in the case now and herein should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
This is witness number 13.
All right, Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
Yes, my name is Paul Gallagher. Last name Gallager.
And how are you employed, sir?
I'm a lieutenant with the Canton Police Department.
And how long in total have you been a member of the Canton Police Department?
A total of 32 years, 2 years as a permanent intermittent officer, 30 years full-time.
And you indicated that you are a lieutenant, is that correct?
That is correct.
And how long have you held the rank of lieutenant?
I was promoted to lieutenant August 1st of 2021.
What did you do with the Canton Police prior to becoming a lieutenant?
I was the detective sergeant from 2018 until I was promoted in 2021.
And what is it, just starting with that, what is it that a detective sergeant does?
So when a patrolman takes an initial report, anything that needs follow-up, the detective sergeant makes sure it's assigned to a detective, usually the next detective working, and make sure that all the steps are taken to manage the cases and bring it to fruition, if possible.
And what is it, what are your general duties and responsibilities as a lieutenant with Canton Police?
Currently, I am in charge of internal affairs, background checks, patrol, and I oversee detectives.
You say currently, what was it prior?
I was promoted in 2021. At that time, Lieutenant Kelleher was the lieutenant in charge of detectives. We have since had a change of police and our assignments have changed.
Now, were you working with Canton Police on the morning of January 29th, 2022?
I was.
And at some point, did you receive a phone call?
I did.
And about what time was that and who called?
That was shortly after 6 a.m. It was Sergeant Sean Good.
And he's a member of your department as well?
He is. He's the 12 to 8 supervisor, which our shifts actually run 11:45 p.m. to 7:45 a.m., but we call it the 12 to 8 shift.
And what, if anything, was indicated to you in this call from Sergeant Good?
Sergeant Good told me he was responding to a scene where a party was found unconscious, possibly not breathing in the snow. He stated his name was John O'Keefe. He was a Boston police officer who resided on Meadows Ave. He further told me that he had gotten a call earlier about John O'Keefe not returning home that night. His friends had called the hospitals, then they called the police, then they went out and looked for him, and they found him unconscious and not breathing in the snow.
And based on that information, what, if anything, did you?
I told him I would respond.
Where were you initially responding to?
I was initially responding to Meadows Ave. I misinterpreted when he said he was a Boston police officer on Meadows Ave. I thought they discovered him on Meadows Ave.
And subsequently, did you learn a different location and respond to that location?
I did.
What was that location that you subsequently determined was where you were going?
When I called the dispatch to find out the exact address, I was told it was 32 Fairview Road.
And that was from the dispatch, is that correct?
That's correct. It was Officer Dever who answered the phone.
That would be Officer Kelly Dever, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, did you go straight from home to the scene, or did you go stop somewhere else prior to?
I stopped at Canton Police Department prior to that.
And what was the purpose of stopping at Canton Police Department prior to going to Fairview?
I was picking up some winter gear, and I advised Sergeant Good via the radio that all midnight personnel was to be held till further notice.
And you say winter gear, as far as you're responding to a scene, what, if any, other sort of equipment did you procure when you went to Canton Police?
It was clothing. I needed a winter jacket, hat, things of that nature. I was responding in my personal vehicle.
Leaf blower?
And if you know, about what time was it that you arrived on Fairview Road that morning?
I arrived shortly after 7 a.m.
And when you arrived, what, if anything, was it that you observed upon your arrival?
There were some vehicles pulling away, but parked by where the scene was were 3 Canton police vehicles and 1 black Toyota pickup truck that is assigned to our detectives.
And who, if anyone else from your department was there at that time?
When I arrived, the 3 marked units were occupied by Officer Mullaney, Officer Saraf, Sergeant Good, and the Toyota pickup was driven there by Detective Sergeant Lank.
And as far as by the time you arrived, Mr. O'Keefe is no longer on scene, is that correct?
That is correct.
And what, if any, vehicles or apparatus or any personnel from the fire department were on scene by the time that you arrived?
None.
Now, when you first arrived, who, if anyone, did you first sort of speak with on scene?
I first encountered Sergeant Good.
And you had a conversation with him, is that correct?
That is correct.
And then who, if anyone else, did you talk to now?
Detective Sergeant Lank joined us as well.
And following these initial conversations with Sergeant Good and Detective Sergeant Lank, what did you do with that?
Once they updated me on the case, we decided that we had to process where Mr. O'Keefe was found. It was snowing heavily. Sometimes the wind was blowing north, sometimes it was south. It was changing directions, and we discussed how to process where Mr. O'Keefe was found, because at the time we had no idea how he came to be where he was.
And with respect to that, first, as far as where Mr. O'Keefe was, who, if anyone, directed you to where Mr. O'Keefe had been prior to your arrival?
When I arrived and I spoke with Sergeant Good and Detective Sergeant Lank, they updated me on the case. They had told me that Mr. O'Keefe was transported to the hospital, that they were doing CPR on him at that time. They told me that he was bleeding from the mouth and nose, and that he may have had swelling above one of his eyes. They told me that They transported his girlfriend as well, and they told me the circumstances surrounding that incident. They told me that at some point after the phone call to the police station, friends, the woman's name was Kerry Roberts, picked up Miss McCabe and John O'Keefe's girlfriend, Karen Reed, and they drove around and they discovered Mr. O'Keefe on the left side of the property. I would call it the east side of the property, unconscious and not breathing in the snow.
Now, this area that Sergeant Good directed you to where he indicated Mr. O'Keefe was, you mentioned that it was snowing heavily at this time, is that correct?
It is correct, yes.
And about how much snow was on the ground in this area at the time that you initially went over there?
I would say at least 4 inches of snow.
Now, with reference to, as far as you mentioned, sort of processing the scene, what, if anything, did you and the other officers do with regard to that scene as far as that was concerned?
So it was a unique scene because of the weather. Sergeant Lank had notified Norfolk County CPAC. He had advised them that...
Sustained.
I'm sorry, can you rephrase the question, please?
So Detective Sergeant Lank had reached out to Norfolk County CPAC, correct?
That is correct.
And what is CPAC?
It's the State Police Investigative Unit of the District Attorney's Office, Crime Prevention and Control.
And what, if any, as far as that notification is concerned, what is sort of a protocol when you have an unintended death?
So when we have an unintended death, the Norfolk County CPAC unit responds and takes jurisdiction. In this particular case, Mr. O'Keefe was still alive, so they declined to respond at that time.
There may be a term that's pretty well understood, but when you say unattended death, what do you mean by that?
An unexplained death, a person who was alone at the time of their death.
And so at this point, no one from the state police had responded or was responding to the scene at that point?
That is correct.
And so what, if anything, did you and the other officers do with regard to the scene where Mr. O'Keefe had been located in the snow?
So we decided on how we were going to process the area. Our concern was there were some light pink spots in the snow, and we thought it may be blood. So we were discussing how to get to that, uncover the blood safely. We decided we were going to process the scene with a leaf blower. I figured we could direct the snow off the area in a controlled fashion. At that time, Sergeant Good volunteered to go get a snowblower. But what I told him in the meantime, I wanted to photograph the area. I wanted all the cruisers away from the house. There was one cruiser, I believe, occupied Officer Sarif directly in front of where Mr. O'Keefe was. I wanted him backed up. And there was crime scene tape set up, and it was blowing wildly in the wind. It was serving no purpose at that time. There were no civilians or witnesses about. And I knew we had 2 officers who could protect the scene while we processed it. So Sergeant Good, before he left to get the leaf blower, he directed the officers to move their cruisers. I told Sergeant Lank the most important thing he could do at this time would...
Objection. The objection sustained. Move on to your next question, Mr. Lally.
I told
Now,
Sergeant Link
you
that's
mentioned that there
hearsay,
was
even though he
some
said it.
crime scene tape that was set up around, is that correct?
That is correct.
And how was that accomplished?
Sergeant Good and my Detective Sergeant Lank put out the crime scene tape.
Did you know what, if anything, they were able to use to attach it to in order to set it up around where Mr. O'Keefe had been found?
I believe they used a fire hydrant, a tree, a flagpole, and I'm not sure what else. I don't recall specifically what it was attached to.
Thank you, Teresa. Gifted 5 memberships.
With regard, you mentioned there were photographs that were taken prior to the implementation of a leaf blower, is that correct?
That is correct.
And if I could just ask a little bit about that. As far as the leaf blower was concerned, why was that a decision as far as that being an implement to use in this particular scene?
It was a unique scene. There was snow. I had never processed a scene in the snow. I had seen a leaf blower used in the snow, and it's quite effective at being controlled. So that's why it was readily accessible. The scene was debilitating as we were on scene with the weather. Snow was piling up, and I thought that was the best method at that time.
And prior to the arrival of Sergeant Good back to the scene with the leaf blower, what, if anything else, was done to sort of document the scene at that time?
In addition to photographs, what we did was, I wasn't sure how the roadway ended. I wasn't sure if there was a sidewalk, a curb, a berm, or whether it was just grass, excuse me. So Sergeant Lank and I dug out what I believe is called a 6-inch Cape Cod asphalt berm, exposed it so we could get a better perspective of how far Mr. O'Keefe might have been off the roadway.
May I approach the witness?
Yes.
I've never seen police officers at a crime scene move their cars away from the crime scene before. If anything, they stay there forever. Unless the crime scene expands.
I'm going to direct your attention. Direct your attention what's currently marked as Exhibit 7, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 16, 17, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23.
There are lots of pictures.
Review those yourself and look up on your phone.
It was a Cape Cod curb that they shoveled out. Yes, this court reporter literally just repeats what is said, and then later she'll go back and type it up. It does seem a little redundant, but the court reporter is the official ears of the court. And she produces the official record. So what she hears is what gets recorded.
Your Honor, may we approach this briefly?
Sure.
Round 2 at the sidebar. Come on over to the sidebar. Couple interesting things. He says it's a unique scene. He'd never processed a scene like that before. Then he also says that previously he's seen a leaf blower be used to great effect, presumably to process a scene in the snow. Then he said he sent someone to go get a snowblower. I think he meant the leaf blower. I'm not sure. But the leaf blower, if there were 6 inches of snow before and there are 4 inches of snow now, it's melting, right? I don't know what the temperature was. If somebody could give us a temperature check in Canton at that morning. If it's below freezing, the snow can still melt because the ground can be warmer than the air. That could account for why there's 2 inches of less snow, but that's a big drop first thing in the morning. Usually,
Mr. Lally, hold on for a second.
Usually it doesn't
Yeah,
happen.
I'll see counsel again at sidebar on this issue.
Sidebar, drink number 3, coming up. So, if in the days before this storm it was below freezing, the ground level could have been freezing, which that you sort of need that for the snow to stick. Otherwise, it sort of melts on impact, right? And if it's melting on impact, it takes a while for the ground level to get a little colder, and then it will start sticking. 6 inch, 4 inches of snow. I sort of believe his 4 inches. Why? Because he wasn't just like walking through it and trying to estimate after the fact, but he was out there shoveling and clearing it. And so I think he would have had a more precise observation.
Jurors, I had told you before how important it is that our record is clear.
There was a sign right before this.
That's why I'm sort of making this take longer than it would otherwise. So
that's the inside. We're counting those as well. just a breath. I heard that he had seen it, but maybe I heard.
Mr. Lally, can you simply hand her a note telling her what numbers?
Yes, Your Honor, I'm just writing the numbers.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. So I would ask that the next 13 exhibits be marked. The next 13 photographs in the book be marked as the next 13 exhibits.
Okay.
So the record stops for a minute while she marks everything. It's interesting that she's the one that marks the exhibits.
Thank you.
Wonder what the other people are doing. She's a hard worker. Plus, she has homework after court with getting the transcripts typed up. Have they now resolved this sticker issue and everything's marked the numbering system is now good?
That court order that needs to go. Sorry.
Lots of breathing, sniffling, coughing, clearing throat ASMR going on right now. Kim, I change out and wash and replace my microphone covers. Because anything you're talking to for, yeah. I hear you. So we've got a bailiff whose whole job is basically to welcome people. The court clerk there, his whole job apparently is to run the clock and swear people in. The judge just breathes heavy. The witness box is tiny in this courtroom. It is so small. Maybe it's designed to make you feel completely closed in.
It's 21 from 32 minutes. Thank you. All right, you can publish them, Mr. Lally.
Thank you. May I return them to the witness as well?
Yes.
There's a sigh. The judge has said she doesn't want to say that middle lady's name. And so she said you to her the other day. Did you catch that? She's like, I don't want to say your name on the record. You.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
I know it's you. Thank you. Ms. Gilman, if I could have the first of those photographs up on the screen. If you could enlarge that just a bit.
And biggen the picture, please.
Yeah, Lieutenant, I don't believe that's the first photograph before you, but if you could locate that within the
Sure.
file.
I believe that's Exhibit 30.
And if you could just describe to the jury what if anything, we're looking at in this exhibit.
So that is in front of 34 Fairview Road in Canton. It's looking westerly or the direction towards Chapman Street, and it's documenting the conditions at the time.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Lieutenant, at any points, if I ask, or any, this is a laser pointer.
Oh, this
Yes.
is a laser pointer. Instructions. Here we go.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have the next photograph, please.
That is simply documenting that the number 34 is on the mailbox. That is 34 Fairview Road.
Do you have a number on that in front of you?
There was no question.
Yes, I do. It's Exhibit 22.
Thank you.
There are two of these, I believe, that are similar. I just want to make sure I have the correct one. 22.
He wasn't asked a question, was he?
That would be 22, yes.
And what's depicted in that photograph, sir, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of sort of the scene in the roadway when you arrived that morning?
It is. It's the mailbox with the number 34 on it, and it shows two vehicles in the driveway of 34 Fairview Road.
And Ms. Gilman, the next photograph. If you could, Lieutenant, when you locate, just indicate which exhibit we're looking at in this one.
That's Exhibit 28. It's a different angle of the driveway, showing the third car in the driveway. I wanted to document what was in the driveway at that time.
Thank you, sir. Next photograph, Ms. Gilman.
It's Exhibit 29, and basically it documents the same thing. The entirety of the house from I guess it would be a westerly view, and the three cars that were in the driveway at the time I arrived.
And the next photograph, Ms. Gilman.
I believe that's Exhibit 31, and it's a close-up of where Mr. O'Keefe was found, and you can see the very light pink spotting that we thought may be blood, and there was an object in the center as well, which we didn't know what it was at that time.
What's the object?
Subsequent, did you learn what that object was?
Yes.
What did you learn?
It was a broken clear cocktail glass. And the pink spot was frozen or coagulated blood.
And the next photograph, Ms. Gilman.
That's Exhibit 23. And it's basically showing that the scene was trampled by rescue workers, witnesses, et cetera, but you can still see the pink spotting in the area where Mr. O'Keefe was.
As far as footprints within the snow that you observed, you indicated that the scene was trampled or walked over by first responders, correct?
Correct.
And the footprints that you observed, what footprints have you, so what areas around where Mr. O'Keefe's, where it was indicated to you that Mr. O'Keefe's body was, were those footprints located?
They were located between the street and where Mr. O'Keefe was found.
And as far as between where Mr. O'Keefe was found and the house or the residence at 34 Fairview, what, if any, footprints did you observe in that area?
I didn't observe any footprints at that time.
Ms. Gilman, if I could ask for the next photograph, please.
That is Exhibit 24, and it's showing a westerly shot of the scene. Mr. O'Keefe was found in this area here, and it depicts the wind blowing in that direction at the time.
And probably pretty self-evident, but depicts the wind blowing in that direction based on what?
The flag flying.
The next photograph, Ms. Gilman.
That is Exhibit 20. That is the I believe it's called a 6-inch Cape Cod asphalt berm that separated the roadway from the property of 34 Fairview. And this is the long look to where Mr. O'Keefe was discovered.
So what was the actual measurement?
Again, that's a close-up of one of the exhibits we saw earlier. Again, you can see the spotting and the glass here. This is, I believe this is Exhibit 26.
So, next photograph, Ms. Gilman.
This is Exhibit 27, and it's some, what we believed was frozen or coagulated blood spotting.
Next photograph, Ms. Gilman.
And that's a different view, close-up of the scene, and that's Exhibit 32.
And the next photograph, Ms. Gilman.
I don't know why there's nothing in here for reference for measurements.
That's when we first uncovered the berm, the 6-inch berm, and it's just a smaller picture close-up of that berm. It's Exhibit 25.
Okay, so he's saying 6-inch berm and
Reference
4 inches of snow.
The sort of uncovering of the berm as you've described it, what, if anything, did you use to uncover the berm?
I believe we just used our foot to uncover that.
So the
what I
snow
believe
level on the
is,
street
the last
only
photograph?
came up 4 inches on the berm. That makes sense.
This is the location from the berm to where Mr. O'Keefe was found. It's just a long view, and it's Exhibit 21.
May I approach you on just?
Yes, yes. Tori.
Tori. Oh, now we know your name. Tori's the girl in the middle. It's a curb. Most people know it as a curb. I guess in this area it might be called a berm or a 6-inch Boston berm.
Now, as far as the cruisers with the Canton Police Department, what, if any, sort of recording equipment are they equipped with?
They're with dash cameras, watch guard cameras.
And what, if anything, have you done to review some of that dash camera footage from the cruisers, from that level?
I've reviewed all of it.
And specifically, have you reviewed dash camera footage from the 683 cruiser officer, Saros cruiser?
Yes, I did.
And Your Honor, if I may, I would ask that it's already been marked as Exhibit 12. I would ask that a portion of that be played for the jury at this time.
Okay.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could fast forward this to approximately 57 minutes or so into the...
Looks like somebody needs new windshield wipers.
Lieutenant Gallagher, do you recognize what's up on the screen in Exhibit 12? And what do you recognize?
That's the video I referred of Canton Cruiser 683 on, it's dated January 29th, 2022 at 7, if the time is correct, 7:02:54.
And around this time, within this video from Officer Sarah's cruiser, what, if anything, did you observe occurring within that cruiser camera footage?
I believe it's at approximately 57:17. You'll see Sergeant Good begin to mark out the scene with yellow crime scene tape. You'll see him in front of the cruiser at first. Him, Officer Mullaney, and Sergeant Lank walk off, and then you'll see Sergeant Good stretching out the crime scene tape.
And if you could, sir, as the video is playing, using the laser pointer that you have before you, just draw the jury's attention to who, if anyone, you observe or recognize within that video.
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if you could.
The yellow tape it is.
Judge doesn't like people talking over the video.
There's two officers with yellow crime scene tape. I believe this is Officer Mullaney, but I'm not sure. I know this is Sergeant Good.
And my apologies, Ms. Gilman, if you could play again.
That's Detective Sergeant Lank in the lighter coat. Sergeant Good and Lank, they walk off camera. You'll see Sergeant Good come into the picture right here. They're stretching out the crime scene tape. You can see it flapping in the wind there. You can see it raise way up because of the wind. This is the crime scene tape here. And I'm not sure what they affixed it to, whether it was the cruiser at that point or not. But you can see the crime scene tape going across the scene that way.
Ms. Gilman, if you could pause it right there for a moment.
Oh, look at that. The windshield wiper starts working.
In addition to sort of the crime scene tape that you observed in this video, what, if anything else, did you get from the station to attempt to sort of secure the scene or place at the scene?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Did you get a tent at the station?
Excuse me?
A tent at the station?
No, I didn't.
You didn't? Okay.
No.
And why not?
I had a tent with me from home. It was a personal 8x8 tent at that time.
My apologies. And so at any point in time on the scene, were you able to set up that tent that you retrieved from your home?
Due to the weather conditions, we did not set it up because it would have required officers holding it down, and we didn't think the top would stay on.
And again, maybe pretty self-evident, but when you say due to the weather conditions, what, if anything, about the weather conditions prevented you from setting that tent up over the scene?
There was high winds, shifting directions, a large amount of snow falling.
Ms. Gilman, if I could ask if you could just pull forward in that video to about the 1 hour, 7 minute mark.
Laser pen at the ready. I think the court recorder is the one that gets shined in the eyes. Okay, new snow is melting immediately on the window.
If you look closely, it's the crime scene tape that's blowing around. Right now you can't see it. Or I cannot see it from here.
Is this around the point where the decision was made to take that down? Is that correct?
It was later on. I observed the same thing, and I told the officers it wasn't doing any good at that time. And there were nobody to keep out of the scene at that point. It was only police personnel on scene.
They took the crime scene tape down from what possibly was a murder scene?
Stop and take it down. Thank you very much.
Because of the wind?
Now, with reference to the implementation of the leaf blower, was that memorialized in any way as well?
Yes, I had Sergeant Good take a video since we were improvising using something I wasn't familiar with being used before in case there were any questions on how it was deployed. I had Sergeant Good take a short video.
And there's sort of several different short video clips of that process. Is that fair to say?
There's at least one that I know of.
May I approach?
Yes.
Was there a sign there? I heard a yes. I'm going to count it.
So showing you with this, you recognize that?
I don't recognize it. I haven't seen this disc before.
What? Judge wants to see it now.
May we approach?
You just handed something to your witness. Asked him, do you recognize it? And he says no. That shuts down quite effectively anything you want to do with that exhibit with this witness, unless you can get around this. Thank you. Water delivery just arrived. But it also gives me the impression that the witness was not prepped, at least not recently. Four inches in 6 hours is a blizzard. I would, from my experience, I would say no. 4 inches in 1 hour, maybe. I saw where he was pointing out the crime scene tape flapping in the wind, blowing in the wind. And I've got to say, why did he have them take down the crime scene tape? Unless, I mean, you've got a potential murder scene. You've got non-responsive person found in the snow. They don't know how he got there. There's blood and a cocktail glass on the ground. Okay, and nothing else. This is a murder investigation. And he takes the tape down. You don't know what you don't know at that point.
Your Honor, Commonwealth seeks to introduce in the minutes.
Okay.
220s.
Thank you.
My deepest apologies, Your Honor. May we approach this briefly?
Okay. Jurors, feel free to stand up.
Jurors, feel free to stand up, pace around the courtroom if you'd like. Just don't get in front of the camera. Looks like we just got a feed on the Daybell. Well, we got the screensaver on the Daybell case. So we'll go ahead and put that up full screen. There you go. So that should be starting here in the next little bit for those that are following Chad Daybell. Stand up, jog in place, do a little aerobics or yoga, whatever you need. Why does it bug me so much that they took down the crime scene tape? I think it looks to me like this was he's a lieutenant, right? Who's like, hey, this is, and here's speculation on my part. This is a police officer's family property. It doesn't look good to have crime scene tape in the front yard. Is that why we'd take it down? Hey, it's bad optics to have an officer with crime scene tape in their front yard. What will the neighbors think? It was tied to a flagpole. It was tied to a fire hydrant. It was tied to a police car, or the civilian vehicle, one of the two. It wasn't going to blow away.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, may I publish what's now been marked as Exhibit 30?
20A.
This is the thing he didn't recognize?
The last exhibit is this. If I could publish that to the jury.
Yes.
The picture he didn't recognize we're publishing?
Anyway, this is 1 through. Sorry, Ms. Gilman, if you could just pause it right there. And Lieutenant Gallagher, do you recognize what's up on the screen?
I do.
And what do you recognize?
It's me operating the leaf blower and at the scene where John O'Keefe was discovered.
And who is operating the leaf blower in these videos?
I am.
Thanks for listening.
And who, if anyone else from your department, is sort of present while this process is going on?
Detective Sergeant Lank is documenting, and Sergeant Good is also assisting.
And Ms. Gilman, thank you very much. If you could just play and run it, please.
I want to see snow flying.
See, it removes the snow. I was removing the snow layer by layer. And right here, you can see it exposing the cocktail glass. You're going to see red spots appear as I remove it layer by layer. These pink spots start to turn to be dark red spots. As you see, we can control it. We were concerned with whatever other...
Oh, hold on and wait for a question.
So he's blowing off the newly fallen snow.
As you can see, it just takes it layer by layer.
Hold on for a second. Mr.
Stop.
Lally, Ms. Gilman, can you pause it? So if you have a question for the lieutenant, All right. You're asking him to narrate the whole thing. We're not going to do it that way. And you can pause and then question. It's great you're keeping your voice up over the sound of the leaf blower, but it's a little distracting.
I understand, Your Honor.
So do you have a question, Mr. Lally?
Just briefly at this point, so Lieutenant Gallagher, with respect to as you're conducting this sort of process, what, if anything, are you concerned about as far as throughout this process of trying to locate evidence there?
We're concerned with the weather destroying biological evidence at that time.
So what, if anything, were you doing with regard to that?
We were trying to take the snow that had fallen over the blood, and we were trying to remove it to expose the blood.
And fair to say, as far as during this sort of removal process, how much of the snow were you able to sort of sift layer by layer with the leaf blower that you had?
We could control how much I wanted to sift. I did it as I started out as gently as possible, and if it needed more snow needed to be removed, I got a little more aggressive.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Gilman, if you could hit play. And the next video, man. Ms. Gilman, if you could play the third video, please.
So it's so windy that the leaf on top of the snow there does not blow away.
Ms. Gilman, if you could play the last video, please. And Mr. Officer, you can put the light back. Thanks. Lieutenant, with reference to that process, how far deep into the snow were you able to go with using that leaf blower in that manner?
We got almost to the ground, bare ground.
As far as sort of a surface area, like how much of that area where Mr. O'Keefe was found were you able to use the leaf blower on?
It was approximately a 6x6, 7x7 type area.
And from that area, what, if anything, in addition to the cocktail glass pieces that you already testified to and the red spots on the ground, what, if anything else, did you observe?
We didn't observe anything at that point. Anything else, just the blood in the glass.
Now, Lieutenant, during the time that you were on scene, with reference to the neighborhood in general, how many people did you observe sort of come out of their house at any point in time that you were there?
I didn't observe anybody ever come out of their house.
And that includes the residents that you were in front of, as well as any other residences along that street, is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, at some point, about how long a period of time, if you know, were you on scene that particular morning?
Approximately 50 minutes, 45 to 50 minutes.
And following that, where did you go?
We brought the exhibits back to Canton Police Headquarters.
And by that you mean the glass and what you had collected of the blood?
Yep, we took 6 blood samples, yes.
Okay, and how were you able to sort of collect the blood samples on scene?
Well, the blood samples, because they were frozen, we debated on how to collect it. We didn't think swabbing was going to be easy to do if it was frozen. So we decided on finding some type of temporary plastic evidence container. We were able to find large cups, and we took 6 samples. We bagged the 6 samples, and Sergeant Lang transported them back to Canton Police Headquarters.
We need snow cones.
And with respect to
The
those
thumbnail.
samples and piece of glass that you located, eventually, what, if anything, was done with those? Well, first and foremost, when you came back to Canton Police Station, what, if anything, did you do with them?
Chief Berkowitz was at headquarters, and we had a meeting in the detective sergeant's office.
What I'm asking, sir, is with reference to those items that you took back from Fairview, when you got back to the station, what, if anything, did you do?
Sergeant Lang placed them into evidence.
And then subsequent to Sergeant Lang placing them into evidence at some point, where did they go?
They were turned over on February 1st to the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab.
And was that something where they were driven to the crime lab, or did the crime lab come to the station?
The crime lab was already at the station.
Now, you go back to the police station and have some conversation with your chief, is that correct?
That is correct.
And what was your chief's name?
Chief Berkowitz, Kenneth Berkowitz.
And following that conversation, at some point, did you return to Fairview Road that morning?
I did.
Okay. And who, if anyone, did you go there with?
I accompanied Detective Sergeant Lang.
And when you arrived, where did you go with reference to residence?
We went into a side door, and there were people in the kitchen at that time. I believe it was the kitchen area.
And did you know any of the people that were in the kitchen?
I did.
Who, if anyone, did you know?
Who I remember specifically was Jen McCabe, who I don't know personally, but I know because that's who Sergeant Lang arrived to talk to, and I knew Brian Albert in a professional sense.
And so Brian Albert is also a police officer, is that correct?
He was Boston police officer, yes.
Now, as far as any other people, who, if anyone else, were you introduced to when you came into the kitchen area of the home?
I wasn't introduced to anybody. All I know is there were 5 or 6 people there.
And are you familiar with a gentleman by the name of Brian Higgins?
I am.
And how are you familiar with him?
He is an ATF agent who I've worked with when I was assigned to DEA, and he later had a satellite office at our PD, and I have since come to know him personally.
And in reference to your work with the DEA, how long did you work with the DEA?
13 years.
And so, Mr. Higgins, was he present in the home on Fairview when you arrived there that morning?
I don't recall him. When I arrived originally, definitely not. I don't recall if he was there when we arrived about 9 a.m.
And so you don't recall him being there at all?
I don't recall specifically. I never had any conversation with him.
Now, you had made some mention of February 1st, a few days later, at your department, there were members from the crime lab that came, correct?
That is correct.
And what, if anything, did they come there to do?
They were assisting the state police in executing a search warrant on a motor vehicle.
And where was that motor vehicle in relation to your department?
It was in our Sally Port.
If you could just describe to the jury sort of what is a Sally Port, specifically the Canton Police, like where is it located, what does it look like?
Sure, it's on the rear portion of our police department. They are large overhead doors that are numbered, 1, 2, 3, and 4. We only have 2 bays, so the Sally Port that the vehicle was in, typically we enter through door 4 and you would exit through door 3. Those doors, overhead doors, can only be controlled by a computer in the dispatch center. And it's where we bring in our prisoners. Once the Sally Port goes up, you enter, close the door, the area is secure. The rest of the PD is only accessible by access card, key access card.
As you mentioned, sort of the overhead garage doors are accessible only by the dispatch area, is that correct?
That is correct, a computer in the dispatch area.
And then as far as entrance from the department, how if at all is that controlled?
There is a, to the right of Sally Port 4, there is a key card access door.
Now, with reference to that Sally Port area, is there, what if any cameras are located in that area?
I know there's cameras in the area. I don't specifically know where they are. I typically don't look for them. I know it is under surveillance, as most of our department is.
And have you reviewed at least a portion or the entirety of the Sally Port video from that particular day of February 1st?
I've seen a small portion, yes.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to see maybe some Sally Port video of the car being searched. Sally Port's actually a pretty common term for police officers or police stations. It's not just a Boston.
On that particular flash drive?
Yes.
Okay, what is depicted on that, sir?
CPD Sally Port videos.
You know, call will seek to introduce and admit as the next exhibit.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
I'm hoping these videos are a little better quality than what we've had so far from the dash cams. There's no reason inside a police garage to have poor quality video.
At this time, I seek to publish a portion of Exhibit 34 for the jury.
Okay.
There's a sigh.
May I have one moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Martin, you've been gone way too long.
So, Ms. Gilman, if I could have the portion that's February 1st that covers 12 a.m. to 12 noon.
You've done that 2-1 at the bottom. Yeah.
I'm starting to see why the defense made such a stink about the investigation. So it seems like some things might have been done poorly. Still undecided on the case myself, but I am looking forward to hearing more evidence. Do we count that last breath as a sigh?
Ms. Gilman, if I could ask you to just fast forward that to approximately 9:11 a.m.
It'd be great if we could see the display about now, Mr. Cameron.
So if you could just pause 1 second.
Why don't we take our morning recess? Why don't we take a 10, 15-minute recess?
All right, hurry up.
I don't know what the delay is here.
Nancy.
We need some lip reading there.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, seated.
All right, so we're still in session. So in presenting the exhibits to be marked, please take them out of the plastic and out of the envelopes because the actual item itself gets a sticker on it. That'll just save a little time. We're having all sorts of difficulties. FTR is not working. I'm not sure that we're getting any internet in here. Are we all set with this? Is this something, do you want to use the flash drive that you put in? Does that help? Or are you?
No, I think the initial issue, I think, is sort of the size of the video. So bringing it up can be a little, my issue is that as I was standing over there, I couldn't really see anything as far as the screen. It's
dark.
That dark when you put it on.
I couldn't open any of this weekend on my home computer, on my work computer. Okay. So, all right, why don't we take a 10-minute recess?
All right, so court, please.
Okay, a quick 10-minute break here. We're going to skip through that because we can. Okay, a few minutes. Fan's still spinning. That's the only thing that's working in this courtroom is the fan. There we go. And we are back. Hopefully they got the tech working here. 3, 2, 1. There we go. All right. It looks like Samantha Kelly needs to focus on her schoolwork instead of trivia crack. Just going to call you out because your mom said I could. Not sure what's not working here. The videos worked before, and now we have another video. It may be a different format of video, like a different, could be an AVI instead of an MP4, or it could be an MOV.
Court is in session. Please be seated.
Could be raw, but I doubt it. It's probably highly compressed, readers.
All right, are we
This
all
is police
set
video.
with the screen? Okay.
And again, okay, it may be better with the lights. I'm sorry, Mr. Officer. Maybe a little bit. If we could please put the lights back on.
A little brighter, a little darker. Oh, right there. Stop. Perfect.
Lieutenant Gallagher, again, From this video from approximately 9:11 in the morning, do you recognize what's up on the screen?
I do.
If you could, just using that laser pointer, direct the jury's attention to what, if anything, of significance you observed in this particular pause of this video.
This is our Sally Port. You would come in Sally Port 4, exit Sally Port 3, like I said earlier. This is the vehicle they were executing a search warrant on, and this is the crime scene tape.
And as far as personnel from the state police that were present there, who, if anyone, was present there that you knew or were aware of?
I knew Trooper Proctor was there, and I knew the criminologist was there, and a photographer. I don't know them by name.
So a couple of people from the lab, one taking photos, one criminalist, is that correct?
Correct.
As well as Trooper Proctor?
That's correct.
And do you know Trooper Proctor?
I knew of him. I don't believe I ever met him prior to this. He has worked some cases with our detectives. I knew he was assigned to the DA's office, but I'm not sure if I ever met him prior to this case.
Now, with reference to the vehicle, what, if anything, was placed around the vehicle, or did you observe around the vehicle when you saw it?
There's crime scene tape, as you can see the yellow tape right there.
Oh, he puts crime scene tape around in the police station, but not at the crime scene.
Which part of the vehicle is sort of in the lower foreground of this vehicle?
This is the passenger side rear of the vehicle.
Now, at some point over the course of the time that you were there on February 1st, what, if any, other sort of specialized units within the state police were also present?
Eventually, I think they call it the CARS team. It's what I would call their, I guess, accident reconstruction team responded.
Now, Ms. Gilman, if I could ask you to fast forward within that video to approximately 9:44 a.m.
Two sides back to back. He's ready with that laser. Showing proper technique, too.
Right there. If you could do it. Now, Lieutenant, during this part of the video, in addition to the people that you've already referenced, who, if anyone else, was in the garage at that time?
It's hard for me to say. I believe this is the criminalist. I believe if this is Trooper Proctor, this is me with the gray shirt, dress shirt walking in. That's me right there. And that's Trooper Proctor. I believe the photographer or another criminologist is here. I don't know what their title is.
Now, at some point during the execution of this search warrant, what, if any, issues did you become aware of with regard to the criminalist?
They were having trouble. They were trying to remove the housing to the tail light, passenger side tail light, and they were having difficulty removing it.
And what, if any, assistance did you offer with regard to that?
I told them that we had an officer working who was in charge of our fleet maintenance and our mobile operations unit who probably had the tools to do it, and he also had vast, extensive experience in auto body.
Who was that, sir?
That's Officer Brian Wanless.
And what, if anything, did you do with reference to Officer Wanless in regard to that area of the car?
I asked dispatch to ask him to return at approximately, I think it was 9:50.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could ask you to, if not already there, move it up to 9:51 a.m. If you could just pause it for one moment, Ms. Gilman. So with reference to this particular portion of the video, Lieutenant, if you could direct the jury's attention to when you see Officer Wanless and when you see him come over towards that area of the vehicle, And Ms. Gilman, for your purposes, what I would ask is we run this from essentially 9:51 a.m. through to about 9:58 and 30 seconds.
So we're going to watch 7 minutes of them attempting to remove the tail light. From what I can now see is that the back, the center of...
This is Officer Wanless right here.
Officer Wanless is looking at the back
He
rear tail
examines
light
it,
of the car.
and he leaves momentarily.
Now he's going to glove up.
He dons a pair of gloves.
It's actually illegal to point a laser pointer at a police officer, sir.
And he exits, and he's going to come back with some tools.
Someone just materialized right there.
Here he comes. He places his toolkit on the tailgate.
Objection, Your Honor.
Okay, pause and ask a question.
Narration's
From
not allowed.
your review of this video, what, if anything, do you observe Officer Wanless do with reference to that rear passenger side tail light?
He re-enters the sally port and with some tools, and he places his toolkit down on the tailgate of the Lexus.
And what, if anything, do you observe him do after that?
He begins to work on the housing of the tail light.
Ms. Gilman, if you could press. Thank you, Ms. Gilman. You can take that.
Were there pieces cut out of that?
Lieutenant, with respect
Is that video jumping?
to the items that you and the other officers recovered from 34 Fairview on the 29th, the criminalist that was depicted in that video, is that who you gave those items to?
I believe so, yes.
You gave those items to her directly, correct?
Yes.
Now, as far as that particular, I believe you testified earlier that you were looking to preserve biological matter, is that correct?
Yes.
And fair to say that your search of that area was confined to sort of where it was described to you, Mr. O'Keefe, had been found, correct?
That is correct.
Now, turning back again just to February 1st, and sorry to jump around, but back to February 1st, at some point you mentioned there was a crash reconstructionist from the state police, is that correct?
That's correct.
And what, if anything, did you aid or assist or facilitate with reference to the crash reconstructionist around the police station?
When they wanted to test the vehicle, I secured the parking lot. I advised no cruisers to return to the station, and I blocked the entryway with my marked cruiser and remained in my cruiser.
And later on that day of February 1st, where, if anywhere, did you go with respect to the crash reconstruction?
We went to 34 Fairview.
In addition to yourself and the trooper from the crash reconstruction, who, if anyone else, went with you?
Trooper Proctor was present.
And why did you go along with the troopers to that location?
Just so there was a Canton officer present. If any residents came out, I could communicate with them.
And to your knowledge, had Trooper Proctor been to Fairview prior to that date?
I have no knowledge if he had been there or not.
What, if anything, did you direct either Trooper Proctor or the crash reconstructionist to once you were on scene?
I brought him to the area of where Mr. O'Keefe was found.
You showed them where Mr. O'Keefe was found?
Yes.
Now, turning your attention to, well, one on scene that day with Trooper Proctor and the crash reconstructionist, what, if anything, did you observe them to be doing that?
I believe they were discussing, they were trying to place a drone up in the air, I believe, to map out the area.
Objection.
Did you see that? Or do you want me to strike the, I believe they were trying to?
That'd be our preference.
All right, so that will be stricken, but your observation will remain.
Now, with reference, if I could draw your attention to February 4th of 2022, were you working that day?
I wasn't.
And at some point, did you receive a call in regard to this case, this investigation?
I did.
And who, if anyone, called?
Chief Berkowitz.
And what, if anything, did Chief Berkowitz indicate to you?
He asked me if I was working. When I told him no, he asked who was.
And who, if anyone, did you indicate to him was working?
I told him Detective Sergeant Lank was working.
And as far as what, if anything, was that call in reference to?
He stated he was driving in the area of 34 Fairview because of the warm weather and the warm rain in the last couple of days.
And what, if anything, did he indicate?
He believed.
Sustain. I'm going to see it sidebar, please.
I'm rewatching this on my replay editor, and sure enough, there are large chunks that are cut out of that video of them removing the car tail light. Where did the time go? And why was it cut out? There are people moving in the picture. You would think if this was a motion-activated recording, it would have continued to record. $9:49, 34, 35, 36, and then 9:49, 43. So 4 or 5 seconds cut out there. But there was a bigger chunk that was much bigger. Another big chunk. Now we're in 9:50. I'm getting this ready. We're gonna have this ready in video. 9:51. Keep playing. Multiple times this was clipped, I think. Why?
And so, just to be clear, Lieutenant, you did not go to Fairview Road on February 4th, 2022, correct?
I did not.
I have nothing further for this one.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Lieutenant.
Good morning.
When was the first time you were ever interviewed about your conduct on this case, your involvement in this case?
I don't recall.
It was about a month ago, wasn't it? April 3rd, 2024?
When I was interviewed by, I don't know who you're referring to.
Formal interview by any law enforcement agency.
Oh, I was never, until about a month ago, trial prep, I was not interviewed, correct.
And that interview was conducted by whom?
I met at the DA's office with the prosecutor, Adam Lowley.
And there was also a state trooper there?
There was.
Lieutenant Tully?
Correct.
Okay. So Michael Proctor never formally interviewed you about your involvement in the case?
No, sir.
Never interviewed you about your involvement on the morning of January 29th, 2022?
No, sir.
Never interviewed you about your recovery of any physical evidence at the scene?
No, sir.
Which would include the blood stains as well as the piece of drinking glass?
That's correct.
Okay. Never interviewed you about where that evidence ultimately went and how it made its way back to Canton Police Department?
He never interviewed me, no.
And his partner, Yuri Buknik, also, I won't go through the litany of things, never interviewed you as well?
Correct.
Thank you. And until April 3rd, 2024, nobody from the DA's office had interviewed you either?
That's correct.
Did you write a report about your involvement in the case?
Not on that particular day.
Did you write a report after that?
Yes.
When did you write that report?
Possibly January 2023. I believe it was the request for the metadata, the acquisition of the photos report.
Okay, fair enough. Did you ever, I'll narrow my question. Did you ever write a report about your involvement on the day at the scene?
No, I did not.
Okay. So that's not documented, at least by you, that's not documented anywhere?
That's correct.
Whoa. For somebody who like interacted directly with the crime scene, that's,
when you were at the scene?
No.
Did you go back to the station and memorialize your findings and your conduct at the scene by taking notes back at the station?
No, I did not.
So you have no notes and no report about anything that happened at Fairview on the 29th?
Not myself, no.
Were you ever instructed by any superior? You're pretty high up in the ranks. You reported to whom?
At that time, I reported to the deputy chief of police.
Right, either the deputy chief or the chief.
Correct.
Did either the deputy chief or the chief instruct you, Lieutenant, don't worry about writing a report in this case?
No, they never said anything like that.
You would agree that it's one thing to respond to a scene, it's another thing to actually gather evidence at a scene.
That's correct.
Especially a scene where it's a potential, at that time, a potential homicide of a police officer.
That's correct.
Part of the reason for annotating, memorializing exactly what evidence is recovered is so you can relay that to other officers, correct?
Correct.
So for instance, in your direct examination just a few minutes ago, you said that you went back to the scene at one point. What was the date where the drone was considered?
February 1st.
You go back to the scene on February 1st. That's 3 full days after the event, correct?
That is correct.
After the incident. And you said, I directed them to where John O'Keefe's body was found, correct?
Yeah, I showed them, yes.
But in fact, you never saw John O'Keefe's body, did you?
That's correct.
Okay, so you were giving them information that you had about which you had no personal knowledge, correct?
I had knowledge from other officers. I did not see John O'Keefe at the scene. He was transported to the hospital. That is correct, yes.
Right. So you couldn't determine exactly how he was positioned, right?
Not precisely.
From head to toe, right?
Not precisely.
Where his arms or his hands were?
That is correct, yes.
He's a 6'2" man, correct?
I don't know.
You don't even know that?
I don't know his size, no.
If I told you that he's over 6 feet tall, would you have any quarrel with that?
If Mr. Lally told me, I would take it as fact.
Fair enough.
What?
For purposes of my question, you don't want to take my word for it, but for purposes of this question, assuming that he's over 6 feet tall, there's a better than 6 foot margin for where he would be situated in the snow, correct? From toe to head.
Correct.
And the details matter in a case like this. Any investigation, the details matter.
Sure they do.
Accuracy is vital in a homicide investigation, correct?
Correct.
You did find some blood droplets. We saw it on the screen, correct?
Correct.
You also found part of a drinking glass, correct?
That is correct.
Did you did you endeavor to make a diagram of exactly where those items were found?
No.
You're aware, as you were the former chief of detectives?
I was a detective sergeant.
Detective sergeant. You were supervisor over detectives.
Correct.
You're aware of what cross coordinates are in measuring a crime scene, correct?
Yes.
You take a stable item like a flagpole, for instance, that might be one that doesn't move. You measure exactly from a compass position, exactly north or exactly west, a number of inches, maybe even down to meters and millimeters if you use that instead of inches, using meters, right?
Yeah, we don't employ that process.
So you don't employ a process where you could measure something from a known item north, south, east, or west, and then measure it from another known item and have an exact cross point of where that's
We don't typically exercise in that in our investigative unit.
You knew how to do that, though.
Yes.
I mean, you'd been trained on how to do that.
Yes.
But you didn't employ that technique here.
No.
So the glass, where the glass was found, it's sort of an estimate.
Sure, yes.
Okay. And where the blood was found, that's kind of an estimate also.
Yeah, we would guess that would be where his body was, yes.
Okay. You just used the word guess.
Yes.
Right? But if you had actually documented it using cross coordinates, you wouldn't have to guess. You'd know exactly where the tip of his head was, where the tip of his toes were, correct?
No.
Why not?
Because he wasn't there when we got there.
Fair enough. When I say you, I meant other officers. If someone had employed that before he was moved, they could have figured out exactly how he was situated, where he was in that yard, correct?
It would never happen. Life-saving measures come first. The officers are not going to start measuring while first responders are conducting life-saving measures. It doesn't happen.
That's exactly right. But once the body was moved, for instance, Officer Seraph, who's literally standing there, could have said, okay, I just saw the tip of his head right here. He's now on the gurney. And he could have measured that, right?
He could have, yes.
And then he could have said the tip of his toes were right here, and he could have measured that.
Yes.
And certainly, when there's no life-saving measures at play, you could have done the same thing with the drinking glass and the blood spots.
That's correct.
And in terms of recovering those blood spots, I'll get back to that in a second, but in terms of recovering those blood spots, you indicated that you used temporary evidence containers, correct?
Plastic cups, I said, yes.
Before responding to 34 Fairview, and you indicated that you were told to respond to 32 Fairview, right?
That is correct.
That was a mistake on either dispatch's part or something.
Correct.
You figured out where to go once you got there.
You can tell by the emergency lights.
It was Sergeant Good who contacted you, correct?
That is correct.
And you were at home at the time?
That is correct.
Which is why you needed to respond to Canton PD to get some foul weather gear, correct?
Correct.
You also contacted Brian Albert's neighbor, a gentleman by the name of Tom Kelleher, correct?
That is correct.
And you wanted to let him know that you were responding over to the scene?
Yes, he was the lieutenant in charge of detectives at the time.
Lieutenant in charge of detectives and also the man who lived directly across the street from Brian Albert, correct?
I would say there's two property lines he's directly across from, 32 and 34.
Okay.
But yes, that vicinity.
Okay. Is there a reason that you didn't contact Chief Berkowitz on that day to let him know where you were responding? Why did you pick Deputy Chief Kelleher?
Because that would be my next call. Like I said, he is the lieutenant in charge of detectives at the time. We were responding to a possible crime scene, a possible unattended death. He would be my call.
The normal chain of command?
Correct.
Okay. But you knew at the time that Chief Berkowitz was actually out on leave, having been injured on duty in some similar way?
I don't recall that. Chief Berkowitz is always present.
He's omnipresent.
Not only did you respond to the scene, but you were...
Chief Berkowitz is always
either
there.
you were tasked by one of your superiors, or you, as the ranking officer on the... I guess I should ask this first. Forgive me. Were you the ranking officer on scene when you arrived?
Yes, sir, I was.
So either having been tasked by one of your superiors, or because you were the ranking officer on scene, did you take over the coordination of the preservation of that crime scene?
Yes, I did.
So others were sort of answering to you?
Correct.
You indicated that you had never preserved a crime scene in the snow before.
That's correct.
30 years plus, and your policing experiences here in the Boston area?
Correct.
Snow's a lot?
Sure.
In 30 plus years, you've never processed a crime scene in the snow?
No, I have not.
Lucky you.
Well, we don't typically process our own crime scenes. Sometimes we use the state police, sometimes we use Plymouth County detectives.
So save the state police, or setting them aside because they were not tasked on this call yet.
Right.
You were then in charge of preserving this crime scene, right?
That's correct.
What exactly did you do, if you can name the categories what exactly did you do to actually preserve the entire crime scene?
I'm sure I can tell you that I had Sergeant Good move all the cars so I could photograph the scene, documented by photo evidence. I told Detective Sergeant Lake, make sure he has initial statements from everybody present. And that's basically what we did prior to searching the scene itself.
With regard to Sergeant Lang, you told him to make sure that we had statements, your words, we had statements from all the witnesses that were at the scene.
Initial statements, yes.
Does that mean the people inside the house?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe people across the street, if there were people across the street?
No, it didn't include them at the time. It included people that were involved from the prior night's incident, outing, I would call it.
At the time that you tasked Sergeant Lang with this responsibility, did you know personally that you were standing on the property of Brian Albert?
I did.
Did you also know that Sergeant Lang had an ongoing and a long-time relationship with the Albert family?
Objection.
Did you know that?
I know he knew them. I think you're mischaracterizing the relationship.
Did you see a problem with having somebody who knew the parties taking the initial statements from those parties?
Not at all. Sergeant Lake, no issue at all.
Not in your mind?
Not in my mind.
Were you aware that before you got to the location, that Sergeant Lang had taken it upon himself to already make contact with the individuals in the house?
Objection.
I'm going to see you at sidebar, please.
Whoa. I'm trying to save some of these clips. This is crazy. First of all, 30 years, Boston police officer never preserved a crime scene or investigated a crime scene in the snow. Apparently, that's not his job. We've got some audio going in the background because I'm listening to my replay to put together a list of highlights. I don't have the keyboard, so I'm trying to do it manually, but man. And he knew that it was the Albert's property. I want to go back and listen to how long before he knew it was. Did he know it was Albert's property when he said take down the crime tape? And why did they process this one? Did the state refuse? So at the time he tasked Sergeant Lane, he knew it was the Alberts.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I? Lieutenant, just before we went to sidebar, I'd asked a quick question. Were you aware at the time that you tasked Sergeant Lang to go talk to the folks inside the house that he had already gone into the house to talk to them?
Yes, I did.
You indicated that one of the reasons, I'd like to move back. I'm bouncing around a little bit, I apologize.
I understand.
One of the things that you talked about was the preservation of the crime scene and the lack thereof because of the inclement conditions.
Correct.
There was wind blowing from all directions.
Yes.
There was snow falling.
Yes.
It was icy cold out.
Yes.
There was already snow accumulated on the ground, about 4 inches, you said.
At least it was different spots because of the wind drifts.
Wouldn't that be even more of a reason in a potential homicide investigation to adequately preserve the scene as best you possibly could?
Of course.
Wouldn't you want to, for instance, protect the area? You mentioned a tent.
Yes.
Wouldn't you want to make sure that anybody from the civilian side and or officers don't just start traipsing through the middle of the crime scene?
That was all done.
As a matter of fact, the first responders the EMTs had already done what they needed to do in the scene. And Mr. O'Keefe had been transported to the hospital, correct?
That is correct.
So that was not a concern.
No,
So nobody needed to be inside that scene that wasn't authorized to be there,
that's correct.
civilian or officers.
That's correct.
Who was it that told you specifically where John O'Keefe's body was?
I don't recall specifically. I had a collaborative meeting with Sergeant Lank and Sergeant Good.
Were you aware at the time that you had the meeting with Sergeant Lank that Sergeant Lank did not ever see John O'Keefe's body in the position?
Yes, I did. I don't believe Sergeant Good did, to my knowledge. I believe John O'Keefe may have been in the ambulance at that time.
John O'Keefe, I'm sorry, I got a little confused. John O'Keefe may have been in the ambulance at which time?
When some of the officers arrived.
Okay. So if that were the case, then they wouldn't have any personal knowledge of where John O'Keefe's body was either.
Not to your precise locations, yes.
You mentioned a tent, and you said that you, in an answer to a question by Mr. Lally, you did not go back to Canton PD to get the tent. You had a tent in your trunk or something?
That's correct.
Okay. When you interviewed with Lieutenant Tully, did he specifically ask you, this is about a month ago, did he ask you about the tent?
I don't recall.
Would it refresh your recollection if you were to review just a small snippet of your report, of his report?
Yes.
About your interview?
Yes.
May I approach you on it?
Yes.
Just look at that and direct your attention to paragraph 4. Tell me if you recognize that document.
I don't recognize the document. It's the first time I've seen it.
Fair enough. Does it, read the highlighted portion and tell me whether that refreshes your recollection about a conversation you had with Lieutenant Tully about the tent.
Okay, I didn't
Read it to yourself.
Yes, okay.
You've read that?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you recall telling Lieutenant Tully?
Oh, you can ask him what if that refreshes his recollection.
Does that refresh your recollection at this point?
It doesn't change my recollection.
You said you didn't recollect exactly what you told Lieutenant Tully about the tent. And I'm asking, does that refresh your recollection about what you told Lieutenant Tully about the tent?
Yeah, that's not what I said about the tent.
Okay, so you didn't say, I drove to Canton PD headquarters to retrieve a tent to protect the area where O'Keefe was found from falling snow, but never used the tent due to high winds.
We didn't have a tent at that time.
That wasn't my question. I'm being very specific. Did you say that to Lieutenant Tully?
No, that was misinterpreted.
Okay, so if he got that, if that's in his report, that's incorrect.
It's not accurate, correct.
Okay. Is there anything else that you read in that report that's not accurate?
You asked me to read the highlighted version. That's what I read. I didn't see any. I didn't read any other part of the document.
That was a witness sigh. It was both an in and an out, back to back.
Let me have just a moment. You're
Double
on.
sigh.
Yes.
That was the judge's sigh.
You indicated, still staying on at the crime scene on January 29th, you indicated on direct examination that the area adjacent to the blood stains that you saw and the drinking glass that you found, that area was somewhat trampled by, you presume, the first responders, the EMTs.
That's correct.
You also indicated that you didn't see any other signs of shoe prints going from the street to the house, correct?
From the scene to the house, correct.
From the scene to the house.
Correct.
Meaning, what do you mean when you say that, from the scene to the house?
So the house, you have the house, and the scene was to the far left, actually on the property line with number 32. So I didn't see any footprints. The only other footprints I saw was where the officers walked around and put up the crime scene tape.
Meaning walking through the yard?
Correct.
And putting up crime scene tape?
Correct.
All right, and if somebody had, how many of those sets of prints did you see?
I don't recall.
Did you photograph or seek to have anybody else photograph the area from the scene to the house?
Just those long shots that you saw in the exhibits.
Okay. And the snow was actively falling at the time, correct?
Yes.
So if there had been a print a couple of hours earlier, you very well might not see it.
That is correct.
That's good for defense. Possibility of footprints from the house to the body helps their story.
I'd like to ask you a couple of questions about the collection of the blood. You found what you thought was blood initially, right?
That's correct.
Pink in color, reddish in color.
Correct.
And you began the process of removing layers of snow, in other words, dusting the area with a leaf blower.
That is correct.
Had you ever used a leaf blower in a crime scene preservation effort?
First time.
First time. And you indicated your testimony was temporary evidence containers to collect that blood, correct?
Yep, we utilized cups, plastic cups.
Those were red Solo cups, right?
That's correct.
The same kind of red Solo cup you drink beer out of at a barbecue?
Yeah, sure, you could.
Objection, Your Honor. Strike.
I'll allow it.
I'll allow
There's
it.
nothing special
Stays
about
in.
the red Solo cup?
Other than their plastic, nothing special.
And where did you get those red Solo cups?
We got them from Lieutenant Kelleher.
So in other words, you got the, to use your words, the evidence containers from a neighbor.
Correct.
He had some Solo cups in his house.
Now, we asked him if he had any plastic containers, any type of plastic container that we could utilize.
How far were you from Kenton PD? From 34 Fairview to Kenton PD? Give me an idea.
Mile and a half.
So even in really bad weather, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, is that right, to drive?
Sure.
You didn't go back to Kenton PD to get actual evidence containers, correct?
We wouldn't have temporary plastic containers that what we were looking for. We're looking to take samples of snow. We wouldn't have had, I know for a fact we did not have those. We needed bags, needle containers, things of that nature. We're all set, but as far as plastic containers that we wanted to utilize, we didn't have them.
Do you have any glass containers?
No.
So Kenton PD does not have or utilize evidence collection containers that are plastic?
We have needle containers that are plastic. We have blood swabs that are in plastic containers. But for what we wanted to take a sample, we did not have. So we improvised.
My next question is, certainly Kenton PD employs and owns sterile swabs.
Correct.
Sterile swab is in a container that's long, and usually the swab is connected to the lid, pop it out, and then it's sealed.
That's correct.
And forensically stable, correct?
Yes.
And the reason that it's sealed and forensically stable is so nothing can contaminate the sample, correct?
Sure,
But
yes.
just as importantly, the blood sample can't contaminate anything else.
Correct.
Did you go to Kenton PD a mile away and get sterile swabs for the blood collection?
Blood was frozen. We didn't think it would be viable.
You didn't think it would be viable?
Correct.
If you touched the swab to cold blood, you think you might get some blood on that swab?
I wasn't sure it would be efficient for testing.
So what you did instead was you gathered red Solo cups from a neighbor, unsterilized, and scooped up the snow with what you thought the blood was, and just carried them back to the truck?
Nope, we took 6 samples, individual samples. Our philosophy was we'll let the crime lab extract it the way they best see fit. Those 6 samples were bagged and then transported back to Camp Police Headquarters and placed into evidence.
Were they covered?
No, not that I recall.
They weren't sealed in any way?
No.
So if somebody sneezed over the top of one of those cups?
They were sealed in a bag, brown evidence bag. At that time, nobody was going to sneeze over the cup.
Do you have a rough estimate of how many people handled those red Solo cups before they were used to collect blood evidence in this homicide case?
You want me to estimate?
Give me an idea.
Sure, Sergeant Lank.
No, I'm sorry. My question was a bad one. before you took possession of the red Solo cups, do you have any idea how many people before you had handled those Solo cups?
I took them out of a package, so probably none.
How about before they were packaged?
I assume Solo doesn't sell contaminated cups. I would say none.
So they're certainly not forensically stable. They're not sterile.
By your, I don't know what definition you're looking for, but I would agree.
Do you think it's standard practice for a police department to borrow red Solo cups from a neighbor to gather evidence?
Objection.
You can go ahead and answer that, Lieutenant.
Of course not.
Oh, wow.
Nothing about the scene was standard.
Right.
Let that sink in. Nothing about this was
The
standard.
glass shard. I'll touch on the Solo cups in just a second, but I want to talk about the glass shard of the drinking glass. Were you the one that found the drinking glass?
I was operating the leaf blower and uncovered the glass, yes.
So you were the first one, well, I guess you couldn't tell me if you're the first one, but you noticed it pretty quick.
I wouldn't say it was quick, but we uncovered it.
Okay. And then there is you mentioned a CARS report in your direct examination. There was a report done of where some of these items were found, correct?
You'll have to clarify. I'm not sure what you mean.
Did you mention a CARS report, which is a report of the crime scene, where things were located, mapping of those things?
You objected. It was sustained. I never got to answer that question.
Touche. Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's funny.
Just going to show you a document and see if you recognize that.
I don't recognize it. I could tell you what it is.
That's okay. If you don't recognize it, that's all I need. Your Honor, may I?
Yes.
Thank you. Are you familiar generally, I don't necessarily need to talk about this one, but are you familiar generally with CARS reports?
Not at all.
Not at all? That's not sort of in your framework?
Not in my realm.
Okay. Are you aware that there is a process by which items of evidence are mapped, or they attempt to be mapped for a crime scene?
I don't do homicide investigations. I'm not aware of that.
Okay. Again, with regard to where the blood drops were found, let me go back to one other question I had. You said you took 6 samples, correct?
That's correct.
Did you precisely indicate in any report or note or diagram exactly which blood drops were in which Solo cup?
I did not.
Okay. As you were using that snowblower and you uncovered the glass cup and more of the blood samples, at any point did you see a size 12 men's shoe black in color?
No.
At any point did you see a man's baseball hat black in color?
No.
You actually dug out a portion of you didn't dig it out, you moved it with your foot, or somebody did, a portion of the berm or the curb that separates the street from the yard, correct?
That is correct.
At any point along that curb line, did you see a men's shoe?
Along the exposed curb line, no.
Did you see it anywhere else?
No.
And you didn't see a hat anywhere else?
No.
You didn't see any bright red taillight material anywhere else?
I did not.
You did not see any clear taillight material?
I did not.
You did not see any black plastic material? No. You certainly didn't see 45 pieces of plastic material?
I did not.
If you had found a broken glass, if you find a broken glass on somebody's yard in a situation like this, did that seem out of place to you?
They were coming from a bar. It didn't seem totally out of place, no.
At the time that you found the broken glass, would you rationally think, well, maybe the rest of this glass is inside the residence?
No.
You did not think that?
No, there was a reason that I didn't think that.
Did you think that, well, let me ask you this. Did you ever go inside the house to search for the other part of the glass?
Absolutely not.
Because you made up your mind initially where that glass came from.
Objection.
You can answer that, sir.
No.
Did you search the house for any other matching glasses?
No, no.
Matter of fact, you didn't search the house for any physical items, did you?
Of course not.
Is that because that house belonged to a Boston police officer?
No, it's because it requires probable cause, as you know, which we did not have.
Or at least you didn't think you had at that time?
We knew we didn't have it.
Did you seek it from a judge?
I'm familiar with what probable cause is.
Did you seek a probable cause warrant from a judge?
No, I did not.
Right. Did you ask for consent to search the house?
We wouldn't do consent, and that's in a death investigation.
Yeah, that wasn't my question. My question
No,
was...
I did not.
Okay. Is that because you were at the house of a Boston police officer?
No, it's because we wouldn't do it. Because if consent is denied, we still don't have probable cause, and we still couldn't search the house.
But you never asked, did you?
Never asked.
According to your interview with Lieutenant Tully, after going to the scene the first time, you then returned back to Canton Police Department, correct?
Yes.
At that point, you remember having a conversation with Chief Berkowitz, correct?
That is correct.
And you indicated that having that conversation with Chief Berkowitz, that was about Canton Police Department recusing themselves.
Not doing any further investigative interviews, yes.
And you indicated actually in that conversation that you agreed with Chief Berkowitz that Canton should be recused, correct?
He agreed with me.
Was your assessment that the recusal should take place?
Yes, it was.
And he agreed?
That is correct.
Okay. And the reason for that recusal was because of the relationship between the Albert family and the Canton Police Department?
No.
What was the reason for the recusal?
The reason was we had a Boston police officer on another Boston police officer's lawn or property, and that property owner was the brother of somebody in our investigative unit.
Okay. That's one way to put it. Another way to put it would be because of the Albert family having a relationship with the Canton Police Department.
It has to do with Detective Albert having a relationship with his family.
Right. Or the other side of that is his family having a relationship with Canton Police Department.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained. Go ahead. Move on, please.
What time was that conversation with Chief Berkowitz?
It was after 8 a.m. when we got back to the police department.
You then traveled back to 34 Fairview to interview the homeowners with Sergeant Lank?
Sergeant Lank was doing the interviews, yes, but I accompanied him.
Okay. Approximately what time did you arrive back at 34 Fairview to engage these interviews?
Approximately 9 o'clock.
Were you and Sergeant Lank well, let me ask this. At that time, did you know whether Sergeant Lank had already gone into the home?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So you knew that you were not the first person to go in and make contact with the individuals inside the home. That was Sergeant Lank.
Sergeant Lank and Sergeant Good, correct.
Before you ever got there?
Correct.
Okay. Did they show you any documentation, notes, or anything of that initial interview?
No.
Do you know whether or not they took notes of that initial interview?
I don't.
Do you know whether they recorded that initial interview?
I know they did not.
You indicated that you personally knew Brian Albert. Is that right?
I knew him since I became a police officer, yes.
And so you indicated that you had a professional relationship with him, but not necessarily a personal relationship with him.
Correct.
Did you know that he was in the house before you walked in the house?
No, I did not.
What was your personal your professional interaction with Brian Albert before you walked into that house that day?
Previously?
Correct.
So in general, as a detective, he was with the fugitive unit at one point. He was helpful when we had a fugitive we needed to apprehend in Boston, things of that nature, job-related things.
Had you ever, for lack of a better phrase, hung out with Brian Albert?
Not a day.
Never socialized with him?
No, not intentionally. It's possible if I went to a retirement party, could he have been present? Possibly, but not that I'm aware.
But you had no social relationship with him?
Zero.
You indicated that there were 5 or 6 people inside the house, including Brian Albert and Jennifer McCabe.
Yes,
that right?
that is correct.
So you clearly knew those 2 people.
I didn't know Jen McCabe. I know that Sergeant Lake was going to speak with her, but I didn't know her personally. I never had a conversation with her.
What was it about Jen McCabe that you recall, as opposed to the other 4 or 5 people that were in the house?
Sergeant Lake was talking to her.
You just remember that name?
That's who he went to talk to.
Got it. So he went back specifically with the intent of talking to Jennifer McCabe.
That's correct.
That's when you accompanied him.
That is correct.
Was that interview recorded?
No.
Did you take any notes about that interview?
I did not.
Did you write a report about that interview?
I did not.
You said that there were, other than Brian Albert and Jennifer McCabe, there were 3 or 4 other people in the house.
Yes.
Were those 3 or 4 other people in the house at the time that John O'Keefe was found dead or dying on the lawn?
I don't have the answer to that.
Did you think that might have been an important thing to find out?
Again, I didn't think of that at that time, and I didn't think it was important at that time. I knew that Sergeant Lank had already interviewed people in the house.
You had what you knew at that time, Lieutenant, was you had an officer, a Boston police officer, who was either dead or dying on the front lawn of a house with a bunch of occupants, and you didn't think that it was necessary to investigate or interview those occupants yourself?
No, I did not. At that time, I wanted to not participate in investigative interviews.
You did tell Lieutenant Tully in your interview with him, you volunteered that Brian Higgins was not present when you went back to the house, correct?
I didn't believe he was.
What, you didn't believe he was?
No, I don't recall Brian Higgins being there.
Okay.
I don't recall who the other people were at that time.
But Brian Higgins was not one of them?
I don't know the answer to that. He could have been. I can't say with certainty.
You know Brian Higgins?
I do.
Obviously, you know him well.
I do.
Matter of fact, you occupy sort of the same space at Kenton PD, correct?
That is correct.
You might see him most days out of the week.
No, but I know him.
Okay. As a matter of fact, you've got a social relationship with Brian Higgins as well.
I have been social with Brian Higgins, yes.
So you know him professionally and socially. You can't tell the jurors whether or not he was in that home when you went back over there to interview individuals about a Boston police officer who had fallen and was either dead or dying on the front lawn.
Objection.
Go ahead and answer that, sir.
I can't answer that question. I had no conversation with Brian Higgins, so I don't recall.
You do know that on January 29th, well, let me ask you this. Foundationally, did you go back after that series of unrecorded interviews, did you go back to Canton Police Department and work the rest of the day?
Yes.
Brian Higgins was also at the station for nearly the entire day.
Again, I don't recall that.
You aware that Brian Higgins had been granted a key card for the station?
Yes.
I'm guessing that is a relatively rare thing if you're not a Canton police officer to have a key card and full access to the station.
There were a couple of ATF agents that had that access, yes.
Okay, but he was one of them.
He was one of them, yes.
Is that access restricted, Lieutenant? In other words, does his key card work the same as your key card?
I don't know the answer to that.
He would have, to your knowledge, he roamed throughout the station at will, correct?
I don't know how he roamed. He's a very private person. You very rarely see him. Usually his habits were he'd go up a front stairwell right to his office.
But his access, I guess I'm struggling with the question, his access was not limited to your knowledge.
I don't know the answer to that. I can't answer that to my knowledge.
He could go into any door he wanted to.
I would doubt it.
You would doubt that it would be limited?
I would doubt he'd have unlimited access. The patrolmen don't have full access. It all depends by your grade. Where he's an outside agency, I'm sure he had limited access.
Who has access to the sally port?
The doors, only whoever's in the dispatch area, the overhead doors. There is one pedestrian door that everybody would have access to.
So he would have access to that as well?
Yes.
Where is Chief Berkowitz's office in relation to the rest of Canton PD, the physical building?
The best way to describe it, I don't know if the jury is familiar with the building, but if you were looking from Washington Street dead on, it's the top floor, far left office.
And is that, I don't know this, I'm not being, it's not rhetorical. Is it 3 floors or 2 floors?
So it's really 3 floors, but it's numbered 1, 1A, and 2.
So he would be on 2, 3 physical floors up?
Correct.
Okay, got it, thank you. When you had the meeting that you earlier described with Chief Berkowitz, where you indicated Canton PD needed to recuse itself, was that in his office or someplace else?
That was in the office of the detective sergeant.
Which is where?
It's on floor 1A.
All right, we're going to take a 5-10 minute break.
Why? Why, Your Honor? Why did we suddenly take a break? Now I can't hear anything. Let's see if they conduct any business on this, if she has something to say. Yes, it looks like she does. So we've got a witness who we're getting like just garbled one channel of audio. I could probably clean up and hear what's going on, but break still continues. Still break, still break, still break. Lots of fan, lots of fan. We're skipping. You don't need to get dizzy. So, okay, there we go. All right, coming back now from break. We're unmuted now.
Thank you. Goes back in session. Maybe see you.
Okay, whenever you're ready, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. You had started to tell us who at the scene who handled those solo cups. Can you describe that for us, please?
I handled them to the scene. Sergeant Lang collected the samples.
Under your supervision?
Yes.
Did anybody other than Sergeant Lang handle those solo cups?
No.
So once they were in his possession, they remained in his possession until they were booked into evidence?
They were bagged, placed in Sergeant Lang's vehicle. He transported them to Camp Police Headquarters, transported it into the office, and logged them in as evidence, yes.
Did you watch all that happen?
I did not.
You did not. So you're presuming those next steps after he was out of your view?
I know that because he told me so.
Well, that's hearsay. Move to strike, Your Honor.
All right, I'll strike the end of that.
Thank you. Not what he told you, what you observed.
I did not observe him place it in evidence, yes.
At what point did you lose sight of those solo cups?
When I got in my vehicle to leave the scene.
So once the solo cups were in his, you saw them go in the brown paper bag?
That's correct.
The evidence bag. Then you saw them go in the truck?
That's correct.
And at that point, you don't have any personal information about what happened to those solo cups? Personal observations?
Until I removed them from temporary evidence, I have no recollection, correct.
I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about once you were inside the home. You've already indicated that you did not seek a search warrant. You did not seek consent to search the home, correct?
That's correct.
Did you look around the house for any sign of a struggle or a fight?
No.
Did you go to the basement at all?
No.
Had you ever been in the house before that morning at 9 a.m.?
Never.
Sorry?
Never.
Okay. Did you go to the backyard?
No.
Did you personally observe whether or not that house has a bulkhead door that services the basement?
I have no idea.
Did you photograph any portion of the house?
The front of the house.
Sorry, bad question. Good point. Inside the house, did you photograph any part of the house?
No.
Did you have a cell phone with you?
Yes.
Has a camera on it?
Yes.
So you could have photographed it, you chose not to.
I would have needed permission or a warrant.
And you got neither.
That's correct.
You sought neither.
That's correct.
Did you photograph any of the individuals in the home for instance, for injuries or anything like that?
No.
Did you or Sergeant Lank separate the witnesses before they were interviewed?
There was only one witness he was interviewing.
Who was that?
Jen McCabe.
Where was everybody else in the house?
I believe they were all in the same area, the kitchen. I believe it was the kitchen.
Those individuals were not taken to a different part of the house?
Not that I'm aware, no.
You were allowed to communicate with and among one another?
Sure, yes.
And I think you already answered this, but I'm going to ask it just to make sure I'm clear. None of that interview of Jen McCabe was not recorded in any way? Audio or video recorded?
Correct.
How long were you inside the house for that interview?
10 minutes, maybe.
Other than Jen McCabe being interviewed, were any of the other witnesses inside that house asked any questions by Sergeant Lank or by you?
No, not that I believe so. Not that I recall.
Were you the person on February 1st who gave access to the Massachusetts State Police to the Sally Port?
I was probably one of them. The Sally Port doors can only be opened by dispatch.
Did you approve or authorize those doors to be opened for purposes of MSP coming in, Massachusetts State Police coming in and processing that vehicle?
I don't know if I specifically did it at that point, but I certainly would, yes.
You knew that the vehicle had been in that Sally Port since January 29th in the afternoon, correct?
I don't believe what point I knew it was in the Sally Port, but I did know it was there for days before, yes.
Okay. And if it had been there from January 29th to February 1st, that's 3 full days.
That's correct.
From the time that that SUV arrived and was situated in the Sally Port, how many people had access to that truck, that SUV?
How many people had access or access to the Sally Port, or is that one, are you asking one?
One and the same.
I would say the entire department.
Dozens?
Yes, correct.
Hundreds?
No, we're very small.
Okay. I don't know that.
So we're probably 45.
45. And just about every one of those 45 people would have access to that Sally Port and that SUV had they wanted to.
Had they wanted to, yes.
And that 45 doesn't include Brian Higgins.
It probably does, but he would have access as well.
Thank you. Those same individuals that would have access to the SUV inside the Sally Port, very obviously, would also have access to anything else that had been placed in the Sally Port, along with the SUV, correct?
That is correct.
Did you photograph or cause to be photographed that SUV immediately upon its arrival into the Sally Port on January 29th?
I wasn't working, no.
Did anybody, to your knowledge, seek to photograph the condition of that vehicle immediately when it arrived at the Sally Port?
I wasn't there, I can't say.
You've certainly never seen any photographs from January 29th immediately when that SUV was brought into the Sally Port, right?
Other than our evidence, I haven't seen any evidence in this case.
You indicated that Massachusetts State Police was having some difficulty removing the light. We saw a short snippet of the video, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Who made the decision to even remove the taillight? Was that Canton PD or was it Massachusetts State Police?
That would have been somebody within the state police.
Okay. And then you contacted Officer Wanless to actually facilitate the removal of that light, right?
I contacted dispatch to ask Officer Wanless to return.
And you knew at the time that Officer Wanless was a sworn Canton police officer.
That's correct.
But Lieutenant Gallagher, you told us just a few minutes ago that you and the chief, actually you and the chief, agreed that the Canton Police Department was completely recused from this case and the investigation based on a conflict of interest, correct?
No, you're spinning it. What I said was from participating in investigative interviews.
So they could take part, Canton Police Department could take part in any other part of the investigation, according to you, with the exception of investigative interviews?
We can open doors, we can facilitate things, yes.
Remove taillights?
There's nothing, no, yeah, if it's an assist, round peg, round hole, absolutely, yes.
Okay, so in other words, Canton Police Department, notwithstanding the conflict of interest, was still allowed to participate in the investigation of the Karen Reed matter.
There was no conflict of interest. I said appearance of conflict of interest, so we have to be careful. I didn't believe there was a conflict. I honestly believe we could have investigated this case, but it wasn't the appearance of such a conflict.
You also didn't believe that there was probable cause to search the house either.
I know that.
That answer will stand. It's stricken, and so is the question.
That answer will stand. It's stricken, and so is the question.
So Canton Police Department was, in fact, at your authority, given permission to manipulate that light in terms of pulling it out of the SUV, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Canton Police Department was allowed to facilitate the removal of that light.
Yes.
And during the course of the removal of that light, a taillight was broken, correct?
That's correct.
And shattered.
Yes.
There's parts of it that were falling onto the ground.
I don't think there was anything falling on the ground at that point.
They broke it?
So now we do have evidence that that taillight, in some way, shape, form, or fashion, was broken or broken more once it was inside the Sally Port in Canton PD's custody.
You're going to have to rephrase that. I don't understand the broken more part.
During the removal process, that light was broken even more.
No.
Now he just says it's not broken more? I swear I heard him say that it was broken and shattered. And that no, the pieces didn't fall on the floor.
May I approach you?
Yes.
Just take a look at that photograph and tell me if you recognize it.
I don't recognize the photographs first time I've seen it.
Do you recognize what's depicted in the photograph?
It's a broken taillight.
Does that appear to be the taillight that was removed during the process that we saw in the video just a few minutes ago under direct examination?
I can only assume it is. I've never examined the light.
So you can't assume. So can you answer the question, Lieutenant?
No.
You don't recognize it?
No.
Okay, and were you, I didn't see you on the video, but it was a very dark video. Were you there?
Yes, I'm in the gray shirt.
Okay. Were you there as Officer Wanless was actually removing the taillight from the vehicle?
Not sure. I'd have to watch the video again.
Okay. Do you recall if pieces and parts were being broken off and shattered while he was removing it?
Not at all.
May I approach?
Yes.
Were you the person who actually recovered? I think you did answer this. You were not the person who knelt down and actually recovered the blood droplets.
Correct.
That was Sergeant Lang.
That's correct.
When you gave the, sorry, let me rephrase that. Was it you or Sergeant Lang that put the solo cups into the evidence bag?
Sergeant Lang.
Was that in your presence? Yes. Okay. How long after he put the solo cups in the evidence bag, did he put the evidence bag in his truck?
Seconds, less than a minute.
And then how long did the truck sit there until he left or you left and you were no longer able to observe it?
He left immediately.
You were at the location the location of the Sally Port on February 3rd. You've already testified to that, correct?
No, I testified February 1st.
I'm sorry, my mistake, February 1st. You also indicated that at your direction that Sergeant Lank booked the solo cups into the evidence locker.
That's procedure, yes.
Right. I understand it's procedure. I'm asking if he actually did it.
Yes.
Okay. Did you see a log of that?
Excuse me?
Did you see a log of that?
I saw the police report.
Which police report?
The original call.
Okay. And in that police report, he indicates that he took the solo cups back to Canton Police Department and booked them into evidence, right?
It was given a property number and assigned to temporary evidence.
And when something is given a property number, is there an officer working that property area to assign the property numbers?
No, the officer placing the property into evidence assigns the property number himself.
I see. So that officer would assign a property number and physically place that into temporary, what's it called again?
Temporary evidence until the evidence officer takes custody of it.
Okay. Did an evidence officer actually take custody of these items?
No, because it was being transferred to the state police, so it wasn't going into our permanent evidence locker.
So where did those cups sit for the 3 days between January 29th and February 1st?
In a refrigeration unit in temporary evidence.
And is there a log to sign in and sign out to make sure that the chain of custody of items like this are maintained?
The evidence officer keeps that log, yes.
Okay. Is there any log, Lieutenant Gallagher, of these items being booked into the temporary evidence locker?
There should be, but I don't know for a fact, but there should be, yes.
I agree there should be. I'm asking you if there is.
I don't know the answer to that.
The fact of the matter is there is no log or document or report ever showing that these items were ever booked into the temporary evidence locker at Canton PD. Isn't that right?
I don't believe that's accurate.
Do you have that evidence log?
I don't. I don't have access to the evidence log.
Could you get access to the evidence log?
No.
You're a supervisor at Canton PD. Why would you not have access to the evidence log?
I think only 2 or 3 people have access to evidence.
Who would they be?
The evidence officer.
Which is who?
Paul DiGiapietro, Sergeant.
Can you spell that for us, please?
DIGIAMPIETRO.
Who else?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm assuming the chief of police.
Chief Berkowitz, I would assume?
Most likely.
Deputy Chief.
But I don't know. Possibly, yes.
Head of detectives?
No.
Any other lieutenants or supervisors?
I don't believe so. I know I don't have access as a lieutenant.
If there's no evidence log of an item being booked into evidence, that's a pretty good indicator that it actually never made it into the evidence log, evidence locker, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Speculation.
We do know that wherever it went, the blood items went back to, and the glass went back to Canton PD, correct?
That's correct.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Awesome, Bri Bear. I'll have to check it out.
May I approach briefly?
Yes.
Thank you. Lieutenant, I'm going to ask you kindly to take a look at those 4 photographs, and then once you've had a chance to review them, just look up at me and I'll ask you a couple.
Did you see them?
I don't know what was just handed to the witness.
Why don't you go take them from the witness? Take a look.
There you go. There's copies right here as well.
Thank you. It's fine.
Which is 4, not 5. Yeah, this is 4. Okay. May I approach briefly?
Yes.
Sure.
Make sure I have it. I'm sure if there's 4 or 5.
Okay.
Take your time.
I'm all set.
Do you recognize those photos, or what's depicted in those photos?
Yes.
Do you recognize the time frame that those photos would have been taken?
Yes.
Based on context?
Yes.
February 1st, correct?
I have no idea if it was February 1st, but it would be between the 29th of January and February 1st.
Fair enough. Your Honor, may I publish?
Okay. Do they have they been introduced?
They have not yet been introduced, Your Honor. I'm sorry, protocol-wise, I missed that step. I need to ask that these be marked as next in order.
Okay. Is there
photographs.
any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Evidence incoming. See these photos?
Start with. I might be able to use this. Ready? Yes. Take it.
37 and 40.
Thank you. Taking a look at what's been marked.
Hold on. They're still being mocked, and the court reporter has to record everything you say.
Oh, we're mocking them, all right.
Thank you.
Okay.
And with the court's permission, Lieutenant, I'm going to try to go in the same order, so you might want to glance at this photograph. It may be better visual for you. I'd like to ask you if you recognize what's depicted in this photograph, especially the area right down here on the right, bottom right. You see that white rag?
I do.
Lieutenant, if you take a quick, a close look at that rag, I'm going to ask you to identify it on the photograph. Do you see a couple of little dark marks on what appear to be that?
I see it on that screen.
Better visual up there. Okay, fair enough. What's the position of that rag as it relates to the vehicle in the photograph?
It's the rear passenger side.
Right rear quarter panel, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And is that, in fact, the SUV in question?
I believe it is.
Okay. The SUV that belonged to Miss Reed?
I believe it is, yes.
Okay. Let's take a look at the, excuse me. It's 37.
37, okay.
Is this 37? Yes. Okay, thanks. Your Honor, for the record, we were just speaking about item 37.
Okay.
Let's move to the next one. Yes. Looking at 38, does that appear to be the same rag in the photograph?
It does, yes.
Okay. You see a shadow sort of looming over the top of the photograph?
I do.
Given what you just said about evidence item 37, does that appear to be the shadow of the right rear quarter panel of the truck?
I would guess it's the tailgate.
So you can't guess?
I would say it was the tailgate. The tailgate's up, maybe the tailgate's up at this point.
You see a bag in the middle of the photograph.
Yes.
Can you read what's on that bag?
Stop and Shop.
Okay, that does not look like an evidence bag, does it, sir?
No.
Matter of fact, it looks like a grocery bag.
In front of Walmart.
Right.
Yes.
So, not a forensically stable item, correct?
Correct.
Certainly not sterile.
Correct. Correct.
You know where that bag came from?
I do not.
Was that a bag that you supplied to Sergeant Lang?
I do not know. Do not recall.
Lang got the Stop and Shop bag.
I do not know.
Next photograph, please. 39.
That was the one with the red little
Take a look
cups.
at what's been marked as evidence item 39. You recognize what's in the middle of the photograph?
Yes.
What is that?
Those are the plastic cups with the coagulated blood.
Do you see on the top of the photograph the same rag?
I do.
With the same markings?
Yes.
That appear that those unsealed cups with liquid blood in them are situated right near the right rear quarter panel of the SUV in this photograph?
They are to the rear of the vehicle. Yes.
And next item, please.
Why were they put right next to the car? And opened up
And
right
this
next to
appears
the
to
car?
be evidence item 40. You see the same white rag.
Yes.
And you see the same evidence bag, Stop and Shop bag, correct?
Correct.
And it's filled with 6 solo cups.
Correct.
With what appears to be liquid blood.
Correct.
Does that photograph appear to be taken at or about the same place near the right rear quarter panel of the SUV?
It's actually, I would say that the mat is the mat to the entrance to the booking area, so that is probably a couple of feet behind the vehicle.
Okay. Let's go back to evidence item number...
Big sigh.
37, which would be the first photograph. Okay. You see the rag in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
Okay, let's go to the next item.
Bottom right-hand corner.
Now you see the mat, and it's, I should note this for the record, that we're now looking at 38. You see the mat and the rag in this photograph?
I do.
And you see a tire on that mat?
Yes.
That's a golf cart of some sort that belongs to the Canton Police Department?
It's a Kubota, yes.
A Kubota, thank you. Looks like the rag is in the same spot?
Yes.
All right. So the blood inside the Stop and Shop bag is sitting right next to the right rear quarter panel of that truck, correct?
You can see the rear tire. It's probably at least 3 feet from the rear. If you look at the top, I can use the marker here. This appears to me to be the rear tire, which would put this a couple of feet behind the vehicle.
Understood.
Okay, why the blood would be brought to the car
Lights.
and opened up there?
Would you agree that having unsealed and unsecured blood next to the right rear portion of the SUV is a recipe for cross-contamination?
You want me to speak to, if I could speak to this incident alone?
That's a yes or no question. Do you think
Okay,
that's
it's not yes or no, but for your purposes, I would say yes.
Okay. And in fact, could even be worse, for instance, not just inadvertent cross-contamination.
Could be deliberate.
If somebody wanted to touch something on that bag, on those cups, and then touch the vehicle, they could easily do that with that juxtaposition of the open blood next to the back of the rear of the car.
Objection.
Sustained.
Lieutenant, if somebody was so inclined, that situation could provide an opportunity for evidence tampering, couldn't it?
Objection.
Sustained.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Wow.
I have nothing further at this time, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Lally?
Just briefly, Your Honor.
It is a ton of speculation, but it's their job to introduce doubts.
Now, Lieutenant, if I could ask you, a phrase that was posed to you a couple times during cross-examination as far as recusal of your department, how would you define that term in this specific sense?
In this specific case,
Yes.
we did not want to go on any investigative interviews because one of our best investigators, name is Kevin Albert. He's the property owner's brother, and we didn't think it would be appropriate if we were on those interviews questioning his family members.
Now, with regard to death investigations, specifically unattended death investigations, what, if any, role does your department typically have when it comes to those? What, if any, jurisdiction does your department have versus the state police?
The state police takes jurisdiction. They run the investigation. We assist them in any way we can. We try to help out.
Now, sir, you were asked some questions in regard to, or you indicated that in regard to the drinking glass that you located in the area where Mr. O'Keefe's body was, that it didn't come from the house. Why is that?
I think I said I believe we didn't think it came from the house at that time because they were out at the Waterfall Bar and Grill the night before. And the initial statements from Detectives Sergeant Lank and Sergeant Good obtained, nobody put John O'Keefe anywhere but where he was found, and that included his girlfriend.
Now, if I could take a step back just to the state police jurisdiction over unattended deaths, what, if any, assets do the state police have as far as investigative assets that your department doesn't?
They have far superior tools to investigate. They have direct access to the crime lab. They have a CARS team that can do accident reconstruction.
Now, with regard to the criminal list and turning your attention to February 1st of 2022, when you're in the Sally Port, you mentioned that Officer Wanless came in with a toolkit to assist in removing the tail light, correct?
That's correct.
And is it your understanding, essentially, he just removed a clip from the back of the tail light in order to take it out of the vehicle?
I believe you can see on video, it just pops into the criminalist's hands.
And as far as your review of that video or your observations that day, there was nothing about the tail light that was broken during that removal process, correct?
Correct.
Now, as far as cross-contamination, you were asked about, you indicated it was not a yes or no answer. What if anything else, would you have to add?
What counsel was depicting was the transfer of custody over to the state police. So the criminologist was handling it at that time. The photographer was photoing it. The criminologist was transferring the blood into their plastic containers. And that's why I'm sure it was being handled by a criminologist. There wasn't going to be any cross-contamination. I wasn't concerned about cross-contamination.
So that was a scenario that you were describing earlier in your direct examination as far as you're turning those items physically over to the criminalist on February 1st in the Sally Port area.
And they are converting them to their plastic containers, yes.
Thank you, sir. Nothing further.
Okay.
Very briefly, you said that no one put John O'Keefe, none of the witnesses put John O'Keefe anywhere but where he was found. That's what you just said, correct?
That's correct.
So your investigative technique is just to ask a witness, how'd that dead body get there? And if they say, I have no idea, your job's just done, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
Argumentative.
If a witness says, we found him here, you just take the witness at their word?
Objection.
You can go ahead and answer that, sir.
No, of course not.
You might want to investigate a little further, right?
Absolutely.
And ask him questions.
That is correct.
Get search warrants.
That's
Look
when
in the
there's
house.
probable cause, we do. Absolutely.
None of that was done here, though.
No probable cause.
Thanks. That's all I have.
You are all set, Lieutenant.
Thank you.
Okay.
Wow. Look at
Who
the
is
judge.
your next witness, Mr. Lau?
Your Honor, the Commonwealth will call Sergeant Sean Good to the stand.
Okay, and while the sergeant's coming in, I'll see counsel about scheduling.
At the sidebar, please come get served. Oh my goodness. We don't know. Karina says, Recovery Addict, do we know if John O'Keefe ever went into the house party? I don't know. I don't have that. Everything we've heard so far from the witnesses is that were no footprints coming from the house to the body. But we've also heard that it snowed and footprints would have been obscured if there were. I haven't heard anything about him being in the party. I'd say something is sticking in my mind that he was carrying a glass. I mean, they found the cocktail glass with him. If he was bringing that from the car when he was dropped off and he had it with him there, it seems strange that he would have been carrying the glass still after he was in the house. If something went awry in the house and they brought the glass out with him, it's like, we're leaving you out here with your glass. See ya. It's not a BYOB thing. I don't know. It's weird. The glass being out there with him, I think that's problematic for Karen's team. Trial's been like a Disney ride.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name?
It's Sean Good, Goode.
And how are you employed, sir?
At the Canton Police Department.
And how long have you been a member of the Canton Police?
17 years.
And what rank or assignment do you currently have with the Canton?
Midnight sergeant and 2 days patrol traffic.
Now, how long have you held the rank of sergeant with the Canton Police?
Coming up on 3 years.
Now, with reference to your rank and assignment as a sergeant with sort of the overnight shift, and when does that shift run from?
So it's midnight to 8. The sergeant, the oncoming sergeant usually comes in around 11 o'clock at night.
And in general terms, if you could describe to the jury what sort of are your duties and responsibilities as a sergeant on the overnight shift?
So I'm in charge of the patrolmen that are on, that work under me. There's 4 of us on the midnight, plus myself, so 5 total. 4 on the road, 1 inside.
Turning your attention to the evening of January 28, 2022 into the morning of January 29, 2022. Were you working on that occasion?
Yes, it was.
Similar capacity as you just described?
Yes.
And so the time as far as when you arrived at the Canton Police Station would be similar to what you just described as well?
Yes.
Now, when you arrived, if you recall, who was sort of working with you or under you on that particular shift?
So that evening's midnight shift, it was myself, Officer Pasquarelli, Officer Mullaney, Officer Saraf, and Officer Dever.
And as far, in addition to, let me ask it this way. So when you're performing those duties in the Canton Police Station, where are you sort of physically situated within the Canton Police Department?
We're inside the dispatch room. That's where you handle all the calls, 911 calls, business lines, stuff like that. So anybody walks in the lobby, you're right there.
And so would that also be sort of part of your duties and responsibilities in regard to being the supervising sergeant for the shift?
That evening, yes, I was inside.
Now, with reference to 911 calls and dispatch, what, if any, training have you received in regard to those?
Everybody in the Canton Police Department, we do not have civilian dispatchers like other larger departments. So every officer that works patrol has to be certified on the PSAP station, which is the 911 dispatch console. And then once you're certified, you're able to answer all 911 calls.
And what, generally speaking, does that certification process entail?
It's learning the software, learning how to know the difference between a cell phone and a landline, being able to look up if a 911 call comes in on a cell phone. We have 3 different monitors, and you'll see that one of the monitors will be a map, and all of a sudden it'll just ping, and you'll see that cell phone. And a lot of the time, because of the location of the town of Canton, we do get state police 911 calls that are on the highway, so you have to be able to differentiate which call it is. It is actually us, or is it state police? Is it Randolph? Stuff like that. So you have to be able to read a map. It's not very hard, but it's that.
Now, beyond that, now, when people are calling into 911, they're typically calling in regard to an emergency, correct?
Yes.
What, if any, training do you receive in that certification process in regard to sort of demeanor or how to handle people on call?
Obviously, if someone's calling in an emergency, they're probably going to be nervous. You want to just try to stay calm as possible, try to relate to them, not make them any more upset than they already are, and try to get the first thing out of his location. Where are they?
Now, with respect to calls that come into 911, what, if any, difference as far as directing a call is there between something that's sort of a medical call versus a law enforcement police type call?
So any call that comes in through 911, we determine if it's police, fire, medical. If it's police, obviously, we would handle it. But if it's fire, medical, we send it to Holbrook, which is the regional dispatch for Canton Fire. So it's literally just click the button, it says fire right on the screen. That call automatically gets connected to a regional dispatcher in Holbrook, who then determines what they need, whether it be ambulance, fire, stuff like that.
Now, reference to this particular shift on this particular date, January 28th and the 29th. At some point during your shift, what, if anything, did you observe about sort of the weather outside?
When we came in, it was just very light flurries. There was nothing sticking to the ground, anything like that. We were all pretty prepared that we knew that there was a storm coming at some point during the night.
And through your work with the Canton Police Department, you familiar with an individual by the name of Brian Higgins?
Yes.
And what, if any, relationship does he have with, what, if anything, does he do for work, if you know?
He works for the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. It's a federal agency.
And what, if any, relationship does he have with your department at the Canton Police Station?
He has a satellite office in our department. He has his own scan card. You know, he doesn't have to check in with myself or anybody, but he works out of our station.
And is he the only agent, federal agent with the ATF that has space or anything at your police station?
No, I believe there's actually, could be U.S. Customs, two of them, other agents that are at work at the station as well.
And do they have sort of similar relationships as far as
Yes, yeah, they have access to the police department. You know, if Agent Higgins has worked on certain calls, helped us out, whether it be a firearm case, stuff like that.
Now, on that evening of the 28th, and specifically the early morning of January 29th, what, if anything, do you recall as far as seeing Brian Higgins around the Canton Police Station?
I remember at one point during the evening, he came in. I don't remember if he came into the dispatch or if I just saw him on one of the numerous monitors we have in dispatch. I can't leave that room because I'm the only one in the building on midnight. So, but we never talked or anything like that. Didn't think anything of it. It's not uncommon.
And do you recall around what time that occurred?
I believe it was probably 1:30. Again, I wasn't looking at a clock to see, but.
Now, with respect to the parking lot area of the Canton Police Station, when it comes to any sort of substantial amount of snow, what, if anything, do you do with regard to the vehicles in the parking lot in reference to that kind of weather?
We try to move all the cars that we're not using. So that would be on a midnight shift. It's any of our unmarked detectives' cars, any of the patrol vehicles that aren't being used. We try to help out the DPW, which is the Department of Public Works, as best as possible when they try to plow our station. Because if not, all it ends up being is just one trail through the parking lot, and it's kind of a nightmare. So with the help of the other patrolmen, if we can get all the keys, sometimes they're not easily located, we try to move the cars to the outer edge of the parking lot so that DPW can make a good pass, and then we'll move them back over.
With regard to the vehicles in the parking lot, beyond sort of personal vehicles and the marked units belonging to the Canton Police, with regard to some of those other agents like Mr. Higgins that you talked about, what, if any, vehicles would they have within that parking area?
He had federal cars there that he used on cases, and I believe he had two. They'd be, I guess, his cruisers. They were Dodge pickups.
And then with regard to those vehicles, in regard to snow removal, what, if anything, was typically done with regard to that?
They were parked to the outer edge, so we don't have access to them. At least I didn't have access to them.
Now, working that sort of 911 dispatch area desk, at some point, just before 5 a.m., what, if any, calls did you receive around that time?
I received a phone call from a woman generally asking if we had locked up or transported a male potty that evening. It's not uncommon that people call and say, hey, did you lock up so-and-so, or did you stop anybody? She said some version of he was out with friends, he didn't come home tonight, and his girlfriend's worried about him.
At the time that you received that call, did you know who that person was on the other end?
No.
And fair to say at some point later you had responded to Fairview Road, is that correct?
Yes.
And the person who had called just before 5 a.m., did you have occasion to speak with them when you were on scene on Fairview?
I did.
Who did you identify that first call to come in from?
First call was Miss Roberts.
That would be Carrie Roberts, is that
yes.
correct? Yes. May I approach?
Yes.
So I'm showing you this. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
That would be the 911 call from our station.
And that would be specifically from Ms. Roberts, is that correct?
Yes.
I'm going to seek to introduce in the minutes of the
No objection.
Okay. This would be exhibit 35.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would ask to publish that call to the jury at this point.
Okay. Hold on 1 second, please. What number? Okay. Okay. All right, thank you. I thought that's what you said. All right. Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, please.
My friend's boyfriend did not come home last night. We were at the waterfall, and now she is probably hysterical because she doesn't know where he is. You didn't take anybody up by the name of Joe. She didn't. Yeah, he's about to cop and will be on foot, so.
No.
He probably another guy and tapped at his own house. I don't know, but.
Yep, no, we didn't want anybody else or anything like that. And where does he live?
He lives on Meadow, downtown.
He lives on Meadow, off Pleasant. Okay, and where? So back home, you said he grew up?
Yeah, they were out having drinks, and then she left. And so because he got home at some point and he never did.
Yeah.
And so I said to her, my husband had been out with her earlier in life, but then he obviously came home. And he had custody with me to nephew from the parents passed away.
Okay.
And so she's home with the niece and nephew, but they're old enough to be home. It's just she's nervous because he never even called.
Yeah.
So she's like, I feel like something happened. And I said, okay. Well, so probably you're in hospital, so you'll be having, I personally think he probably take him out to the doctor. I don't know.
Yeah, did he drive last night?
No.
No. Okay. I think, again, it would be driven by you. She would have to, call in a government patient and talk to us, but I mean, that's right now, it's more, he's just at home last night, this conference, sometimes we'll have a little.
No, that's why. That's she didn't call me. That's kind of why she's more freaking out. So I think I called the other hospital, I said, call Kansas police just to make sure, even if they go on a different, complete representative, or best people, if anybody puts it or not.
Yeah. Okay.
Apparently, they're not even this time,
Yeah, no. Unfortunately, I wasn't there, I was stuck here. But we haven't get any calls to anyone like that. Nobody's arrested or anything like that.
Pickles. Alrighty. All right. Thank you. Good luck. Okay, bye. The rest of it was just
Now, Sergeant Good, what was played in there, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of the 911 call that you had with Kelly Roberts around
Yes.
5 a.m.? Now, turning your attention to about an hour forward, approximately 6 a.m. on the 29th, what, if any, other phone calls did you receive, bless you, in regard to the same sort of parties?
At 6:04 a.m. on the 911 dispatch console, I received a call from a woman at 34 Fairview.
Now, in those intervening sort of hour or so, as you were stating on the 911 call, no one sort of physically came into the Canby Police Station and reported anything in regard to this, correct?
No.
And again, the party that you spoke to on the phone at approximately 6:04 a.m., did you know that person at that time?
No.
And again, you responded later on or shortly thereafter to Fairview and spoke with a number of different people, correct?
Correct.
From those conversations on scene, you now know who placed that 911 call at approximately 6:04 a.m.?
Yes.
And who is that person?
That'd be Miss McCabe.
And that would be Jennifer McCabe, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, with regard to, you talked about the weather when you first arrived to your shift. Around 6 a.m., what, if anything, had changed between the weather when you arrived and around 6 a.m.?
It was snowing heavily.
Now, may I approach again?
Yes.
Get ready for round 2 of these calls. Probably going to sound very similar. I actually could make out a lot of it, but...
I don't even know the disc. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what do you recognize that to be?
That'd be the 911 call from Mrs. McCabe.
I'll seek to introduce and admit as the next exhibit. No objection.
Okay.
Problem is, if I speak into the microphone and tell you what I hear, it covers what I'm hearing next.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would ask to publish Exhibit 36 to the jury now as well.
Okay.
Yes, I'm returning from the third floor to third floor view road in Canton, Mass. There's a man tapped out in the snow.
You're in Canton, pull up. You're in Canton, you connected to know, okay?
Yeah, no, I did that.
Yes, that's the red line.
I can keep like 50 times down here in 50.
All right, but you're in that line, just in Canton.
Okay. I'm going. Where's the market? I don't keep going to Paris.
911, you're in
Immediately to third floor view road, Canton, Mass.
What's going on?
There's a guy on the chocolate in the snow.
In the snow, 34?
Yes, third floor, the Albert resident. Yes, I just pulled up and found it.
Okay, 34
Third floor view, you can't have it, yes.
911, on the corner, where's your emergency? Hello?
Yes, I'm talking, you come to 34, Fairview Road, at Houston.
34 Fairview?
Yes, it's a man unresponsive in the snow.
Okay,
He's right here,
okay, what's going on? Is he based down?
We just switched him over.
Okay. And who's that in the background? Is that some girl?
That is the girlfriend, he has children.
Okay, how old is he?
John is 46 years old.
46, how long has he been outside?
I don't know. I don't know. He got out of the car and it could have been a couple of hours. If he carries, I don't know if he's breathing. There are 2 women trying to, it could be heat and that's all.
Okay, can you just try asking? I know it's tough, but we have to try to find a dog. They just get it.
Is he breathing, you guys? It doesn't seem to be breathing.
Okay, do they know how to do CPR? Do they want to test you?
Yes, he's got CPR. No, he's gone.
Oh, okay. They don't feel comfortable doing so?
No, I think he's passed away.
once you're finding CPR, then I'll hang out with you, and if anything changes, you can give us a call back. Where are you guys outside?
Okay, I know, Mom, that's all the thing you do. I know. Kelly, you gotta get off the money. Kelly, you gotta get off the bed.
You know if there's any alcohol or drugs involved?
He I'm talking numbers about me, and I
Okay, is there any bleeding or anything? Maybe his head up?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, bleeding from the face. And how big was the blood that you did for me?
Yeah, those are police cars going by the
I can
courthouse.
actually just to back that up about 10 or 15 seconds or so once the siren outside calms down.
We're fine.
Okay, bleeding from the face. All right. And how big is the pool of blood, if there is any?
Something coming out of the building. One of the ones that is doing CPR.
Okay, one on that is doing CPR?
Yes, that's working my head.
All right, if you want CPR, and just let me, just give us a call back when you become responsible, right, but we're on the way.
Okay, thank you.
What is that?
Thank you, Ms. Gammon. And so, upon receiving that 911 call just after approximately 6:04 a.m., what, if anything, did you do with regard to dispatching?
So once it was connected to Holbrook, you could hear me. I ended up dispatching my own officers, my downtown cruisers to 34 Fairview, and then I had one other cruiser come back to the station so I could get down there.
And, so you yourself respond down there, is that correct?
Yes.
And about how much time elapsed from the time that you sort of transferred to Holbrook from the medical situation to the time that you travel down to Fairview Road?
I would guess it had to be less than 5 minutes.
And in addition to the patrol cars and yourself, who, if anyone else, did you notify in relation to that call when you
So I phoned Lieutenant Gallagher and Detective Sergeant Lang.
Why then?
Just policy, the seriousness of the call. Lieutenant Gallagher was the off-going lieutenant the night prior, the shift prior, so that's what you usually do. And Detective Sergeant Lang is in charge of the detectives.
Now, when you left Canton Police Station to respond to Fairview, who, if anyone, assumed your role as far as manning the dispatch area in the 911?
That'd be Officer Dever.
And, may I approach?
Yes.
Dever. D-E-V-E-R. Sorry.
And for a medical reporter, if you haven't already, I'm sorry, could you just spell Officer Dever's last name if you know?
Yes, it's going to be D-E-V-E-R. You're welcome.
I'll show you what's been previously marked as Exhibit 14.
Sorry.
You can take it. Okay. Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
That would be our roll call log, press log.
And as far as that particular log is concerned, is there any indication on there who sort of created that log?
Yes, that'd be Officer Dever.
And these are logs that you typically create when you're working that particular position as far as the dispatch desk, correct?
Yes, it's pretty much a running journal for our department.
And sort of how is that information gleaned and how is that sort of transmitted into that log?
It's as accurate as the officer that actually enters the information. So if it was busy in there and she's by herself, you're taking information down, you're writing it, then you have to physically enter it into a computer. So there would be a delay in time.
Thank you, sir. May I approach this to retrieve your arm?
Sure.
Yes.
Now, Sergeant Good, With respect to your response, at Police Station 234 Fairview Road, what was sort of the path of travel that you took?
So I pulled out of the police station at 1492 Washington Street, taking a right onto Washington, heading south.
And then where did you go from there?
And then I took a right onto Chapman Street. And then it would be your third right on Fairview.
And coming down Fairview, what, if anything, did you note as far as sort of the elevation of the roadway as you come from the Chapman side down to where 34 is?
Coming from Chapman, you're heading downhill towards the end of Fairview that meets Cedar Crest.
And so where is 34 in relation to sort of Cedar Crest?
It's the second house on the left before you reach the intersection of Cedar Crest at Fairview.
And as you're approaching, or as you're en route between the police department and Fairview Road, what, if anything, did you observe as far as the road conditions, visibility, things like that?
It was terrible. Heavy snow, wind, visibility was awful.
And when you arrive on scene, what is sort of the first thing that you observe upon your arrival?
As I was coming down the hill, visibility was pretty bad. Obviously, I noticed the Canton Fire engine. Ambulance was already on scene. Both my two officers, cruisers were also on scene.
Now, as far as the particular cruiser that you were in on that day, is there sort of a particular cruiser that is reserved for sort of the sergeant or lieutenant who's in charge of the?
Yes. So 682 is the primary patrol supervisor vehicle.
And that would sort of shift from shift to shift as far as whoever that particular sergeant is?
Yeah, he would take the same one. 682 is it's labeled on the side of the doors, patrol supervisor.
And so is that the vehicle or that the cruiser that you took to go from the police station to Fairview that morning?
Yes, I did.
And with regard to that cruiser and sort of other cruisers within the Canton Police Department, what, if any, recording system is available on those cruisers?
All marked units have it's called a WatchGuard camera system. It has front video camera, and then it also has in the prisoner passenger back seat, has a camera there as well. They should be working audio in the back seat, and they're activated by, if you flip the lights on, the blue lights, it'll automatically click. You don't have to press record. The cruiser automatically starts recording. If you got in a car accident, the camera would start recording. Any kind of impact, the camera starts recording. It actually ends up being passively recording, even when it's not on.
Now, you talked a little bit about the audio as far as in the back of the cruiser, but as far as from the camera in the front of the cruiser, where is the audio recording in regard to that, if at all?
It would be on the mic. There's a mic stand that sits in a charger. It looks like almost a beeper. Should be there.
And so that's located within inside the cruiser, correct?
Yes.
May I approach the witness, Sean?
Yes.
So I'm showing you a flashlight. You recognize that?
Yes.
And what do you recognize that?
That is the flash driver for the Canton Cruiser 682 streaming.
General Conn will seek to introduce in minutes the next exhibit.
Exhibit 41.
All right, why don't we break now for lunch, Mr. Lally?
Thank you.
Let's leave them on your chairs. Follow me.
Let's see if I can clean up that last police call just a tiny bit. So we're going to bail on that as they break for lunch. We're going to take a lunch as well. I'm also trying to keep an eye on Judge Cedric Simpson's courtroom to see if the people show up. Okay, I think I've got it fixed here. Let me see if I can play this. Does this audio come through? No. Okay, I'm going to try to clean this up, but maybe we'll have to do it after lunch. All right. Where are we at? We're at the SIO is up to 74, by the way. We'll turn that off for now. We're going to take a quick lunch and come back afterwards. Let's see, are they still talking?
And you've got Lieutenant Ray,
Yes.
and that'll probably get us till.
I think that'll get us sufficiently through the day. I don't want to release anybody unless the court.
Well, that,
I really don't think we're going to get to anyone else.
okay, and then we'll do the voir dire. All right, so you can go ahead and release the civilian witnesses.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, to the court, please.
Okay.
You are muted.
Okay, so they just did some quick scheduling for the rest of the day. When they say release civilian witnesses, the ones they're not going to get to, they don't have to sit around the courthouse all day. All right, crazy day. Oh my goodness, it's spicy. Paul Gallagher. In 30 years of police work, he's never investigated a murder scene in the snow. I don't know what is it. I guess Boston. You should visit in the winter because it's safer then. This was a first for him. Had no idea. So he brought the snowblower, got the red Solo cups. He got the liquor store evidence bag. Just so many things were done poorly. Does that mean that Karen Reed did not do this? No, it does not. It just means that the state really screwed up evidence, which might make it inadmissible. If you can't verify the chain of custody for blood droplets, it doesn't matter whose they test to. If like 70 different people held them, it's like, well, they're contaminated. Oh man, good stuff, and it just keeps getting better and better. I'm gonna try to let's see, where's my audio? Audio goes where? Sound goes to. Should go to. Let's put it to that TV for a little bit. Let me see if I can hear this. Might have to export this to get it to work right. It's clipping, but it might have taken out some noise there on the call. So we'll work on that over lunch a little bit and see if it works a little better. Vicky, are you? Is the phone in your pocket? So I'm just take a mother nap until you get back. Sounds good. We're going to take a little bit of a lunch. Let's do an hour if that works. Come back at 1:15. And we'll continue this crazy case. It's absolutely nuts. Did he say he's never recovered anyone in the snow or just one of our own in the snow? He says he's never conducted a murder investigation in the snow or preserved a crime scene or investigated a murder scene in the snow before. Because they don't do their own investigations? I don't know about that. I'm hooked. I'm hooked as well, Kelly. All right, I've got a lot of things to think over about today. This was, let's see, who was our first witness? Was Paul Gallagher the first witness today? I think so. I think that was it. So that's going to be day 5. All right, just trying to keep my notes clean. All right. Yes, we have more today. We've got another half day, so you get some lunch, get some food in you, grab some popcorn if you need it, and we're going to be back later for the rest of today. We've got another probably 4 hours or so of testimony to go. So tonight when you go home, please hug the people you love, smile at someone, make their day just a little bit better, and please stay safe till we go live again in about 1 hour. As always, if you'd like to win chat, just be first in chat as soon as it starts, and you too could win. So... all right. Gallagher was first today. Thank you, Samantha. I appreciate that. I've been to Boston in February. That's probably why you lived. I guess the murders happened during the winter. But no, I guess February is still winter in Boston. Never mind. You got lucky, Catherine. You got lucky. You guys have a good lunch. We'll see you right after. Bye-bye.